Oh shit! I forgot to unmute my mic. But welcome. I'm Brandon Blitz. I'm a variety streamer. I stream a lot of video games. I draw art and I program. Well, I code. Anywho, sorry for the late start of the stream. A bit of a hiccup with my webcam. I thought my webcam broke, but turns out, um, I don't know what was going on with the drivers for the webcam, but it will not. It now will not work with a USB hub. I have to connect it directly to my PC. Yeah. Right now, let me open up the file. We'll be continuing drawing. There we go. And we're drawing here. I pretty much end off from around here. Still need to work on the shading for this. Coming decent. Anyway, I was in the middle of watching a YouTube video and pulled it up. It's basically the end of a workplace professionalism. And if I can, yeah, basically, what this one entails is that, all right, here we go. What this one entails is that, there's a lack of professionalism, especially in hospitals for some reason. Which I want to be shocked, but I'm not. I'm just not shocked. I was like, yep, knowing the latter half of my generation and beginning and knowing this portion of my generation and millennials, yeah. What the fuck? Oh, am I not getting any sound? All right, there we go. There we go.
Don't tell me everyone's using AI to do all their work, so no one's getting properly trained. No! I don't want my surgeon Googling how to perform open heart surgery in 10 easy steps. Alright, so we agree that posting sensitive information about a patient is a big no-no.
Yeah,
Oversharing
big
online
no no.
can't get any worse than that, right? Well, what
Oh,
about
it's in.
accidentally leaking classified information about a public facility that shoots hundreds of thousands of people into the sky? Like this employee working at a Mac store in an airport. We're playing the fun game of how many security breaches can you spot in this video?
Thank you, honey. Do you have a straw for me too, please? Thank you, babe.
Bruh. You do not record yourself in a fucking. If you're working at an airport, you don't fucking record yourself in the airport. Oh my fucking god. What am I? Wait, what was I talking about? What the why would you oh my fucking god. I don't understand. I don't understand people.
What was meant to be a video of an influencer working her day job turned into a day in my life, about to get robbed tutorial with codes, people's full names, batch numbers on full display. Come spend a day with me at work as I open my store at the crack of dawn with no visible bystanders within 100 feet. The first thing I do is grab $1,100 from the safe at 6:23 a.m. on the dot, using the code 2468 Dubai Chocolate Labubu, and my exact coordinates of where I'm standing are 33.9 north. Hope that phone she's always carrying around comes pre-installed with Mace, for when someone eventually tries to rob her. This could have been a huge security breach if someone decided they want a bunch of MAC lipsticks and wads of cash for free. And it's not only the makeup store that's at risk. LAX, you in danger, girl. When someone wakes up and decides they want to do something silly and goofy at the airport, they'll have this wealth of knowledge of a TikTok they can use to plan out their bomb boclad prank. Unsurprisingly, she ended up losing her job, not because of Mac, but because the airport deemed her post as violating social media guidelines.
Oh my god. I actually really feel bad when...
You know what's funny? Even though this happened a month ago, those how to rob a Mac store in the airport videos, they're still up on our page. Everyone, so creative. Like how people are taking the office siren fashion trend too literally. The TikTok office siren trend is a combination of cute feminine clothes, fast fashion, bayonetta glasses, and non-HR approved skirts.
I would definitely talk to you about your skirt being short. I would probably stop you if I saw you, but I would probably hear about it from other people before I stopped and talked to you about it.
HR is gonna be all over them like Emily Blunt and a pair of Chanel boots.
Are you wearing this?
The Chupacabra boots from Temu? Yeah, I am. The main appeal of this look is to give off aura. You get it done, you're competent, while living your Anne Hathaway fashion life. No harm in hopping on a popular fashion trend that's blowing up, but the Bayonetta cosplay only works in a few places. Definitely not in a corporate office environment. It's all fun and games until you get fired for violating the dress code because you got fashion advice from someone who's never worked a day in their life in corporate.
As most of you guys know, I'm in the middle of a lawsuit because a girl decided to dress like me, like an office siren, and got herself fired from her corporate job. A lot of you guys are wondering what she was wearing or what outfit she copied. It was this one.
When we're at work, we don't have to be corporate drones the entire day who don't get to have fun, but there is a time for work and a time for play. Make YouTube office siren when working from home. Record day in the life videos on your days off. If you got beef with your patient, take it to the streets. I don't know. Before you post, just remember, even if you delete, the internet is forever. Your future employers will eventually learn how to find archive videos of you making shoes out of their lettuce. The lettuce meant for customers. Cusco's lettuce. I can feel it. HRs will eventually rename their entire department from human resources to, huh? Really? Let's keep a good thing going before employers start taking away everyone's phones at the beginning of their shifts. How else are you gonna watch my videos and tap the like button on company time? Have a good day, try not to be dumb, and see you in the next one.
Try not to be dumb. Don't be fucking stupid. It's not worth it. Stupidity is not worth the fame. Alright, here we go. Allow me to there you go. Here we go.
On February 27th, 2004, on a winter morning in Kentucky, a group of excited scouts gathered for a caving expedition at Sweet Potato Cave. Among the scouts was 14-year-old Jessie Gott. Sweet Potato Cave is located in the rural and rugged landscape of Kentucky, surrounded by rolling hills and dense woodlands. The cave itself is part of a network of limestone formations that are common in the region, carved over millennia by underground streams. The entrance to the cave is unassuming, a small opening hidden among the trees, easily missed by those not familiar with the area. Once inside, the narrow passages twist and turn, with tight crevices and sudden drops that challenge even experienced cavers. It was a scouts group, so they were familiar with its entrance. They prepared for their expedition, and together, the group made their way into the cave. The scouts were equipped with helmets and headlamps, navigating through the shadows. All seemed well, until after some time, the group came across a narrow crevice that piqued Jesse's interest. It looked like a tight squeeze, but he was determined to explore it. Ignoring the cautious warnings, he slipped into the crevice, hoping to find something extraordinary on the other side.
Oh no.
However, the thrill quickly turned to dread when he realized he was stuck, wedged tight up to his chest, with no way to maneuver his body out. The cave wall made a rock-solid grip on him. Jesse had never been in a situation where his body wouldn't act like he wanted. It was a different form of anxiety for him, being immobile. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't even move a millimeter. Stories of cavers getting stuck flashed through his mind, and the foolish thought he once had, that these things only happened to others, never to him, haunted him now. Andrew Duncan, one of the scout leaders, quickly assessed the situation. Andrew could see the fear in Jesse's eyes, his breaths comprising quick gasps. He just went into this tight spot and got stuck, Andrew later told. The other scouts, once full of energy and excitement, now stunned into silence. One by one, they gathered around Jesse, murmuring words of encouragement, but the tension in the air was palpable. Jesse could hear the whispered exchanges behind him, and with each minute that passed, the situation became harder to ignore. His chest tightened, not just from the physical pressure, but from the overwhelming fear that he might not get out. His fingers, numb from the cold, twitched involuntarily, and he could feel the creeping chill settle. Every second felt like a struggle, and the once comforting presence of his friends now felt distant, as if they were on the other side of the cave. The darkness overwhelmed him. No one noticed, but his body temperature was dropping. He was experiencing hypothermia, and this made things worse. Jesse's friends went through a mix of fear and helplessness, watching their friend struggle. Initially, they tried to offer words of comfort, but as the minutes passed and Jesse remained stuck, their anxiety grew. Some tried to help physically, but the narrow crevice limited their efforts, leaving them frustrated. "We tried to get him out, but he was just squeezed," Andrew would later recount. While Andrew and 4 other scouts stayed with Jesse to offer reassurance, a few scouts sprinted back to the cave entrance to summon help. Time felt like it was standing still as Jesse remained trapped. The call for help reached the local firefighters and rescue squad, who quickly assembled a team. They arrived at the scene prepared for action, equipped with specialized tools and a determination to free the young scout. The urgency hung in the air as they formulated a plan. They knew they had to act quickly. Every minute mattered. Once inside the cave, the rescuers approached the narrow crevice where Jesse was trapped. They realized that he needed treatment, not just for his injuries, but also for hypothermia immediately. They wrapped blankets along with heating pads around him and immediately got to work, carefully assessing the constriction. Using a combination of shovels and crowbars, they began to enlarge the opening. Jesse remained focused on his breathing, trying to stay calm despite the fear that threatened to overtake him. He could hear the muffled voices of the rescuers and feel their determination. Meanwhile, Andrew and the other scouts kept talking to him, offering words of encouragement. "You're going to be okay, Jesse. Just hang in there," they reassured him. After hours of hard work, the rescuers finally made progress. The opening was widened enough for Jesse to be pulled free. With a collective effort, they maneuvered him out of the crack around 3 p.m. The moment was met with cheers and sighs of relief. Jesse was finally free, but the ordeal wasn't over yet. Once out, he was taken to a local hospital for evaluation. The medical team was ready and waiting, and they quickly assessed his condition. Thankfully, Jesse's ordeal had only resulted in mild hypothermia, a relief considering the circumstances. After being warmed and monitored, he was soon released. 3 friends, Mark, Jason, and Luke, set out on a weekend caving trip, eager for adventure. The group had heard stories about the Grim Reaper Cave for years, a notorious cave system shrouded in local legend, known for its narrow, suffocating passages and the haunting echoes that earned it its ominous name. The cave was said to produce unnatural wailing sounds, especially when the wind whipped through its corridors. They discussed the details with the locals and went on. The group's preparation was careless. With only cheap flickering torches and no proper gear, they set off wearing worn-out jeans, thin jackets, and sneakers ill-suited for the cave's harsh conditions. Mark brought an old, frayed rope, while Jason packed a single bottle of water, assuming they'd be done quickly. As they crawled deeper into the cave, they realized the narrow tunnels were much tighter. Mark noticed how the jagged rocks formed a twisted, narrow corkscrew ahead, making the path treacherously tight. He was well aware of the danger, seeing the sharp edges jutting out, threatening to scrape and snag anyone. The space was barely enough to crawl through, each turn tighter than the last. Despite the clear risk, Mark pressed on, determined to explore further, convinced he could squeeze through without getting caught. He ignored the tightening walls, his confidence blinding him to the trap ahead. About 30 minutes in, disaster struck. Mark, who was leading the way, slipped and wedged himself between two jagged rocks. His body was squeezed so tightly that the rocks dug painfully into his sides, making it impossible for him to move. But that wasn't just it.
Shit.
Behind him, Jason was blocked completely, his arm pinned beneath Mark's body. The cave walls seemed to press in, growing narrower with every second. The claustrophobic darkness, paired with the sensation of the walls squeezing in, made it feel like the cave itself was alive, trapping them. His breathing quickened, and a cold sweat broke out as he tried to control his rising panic attack. Luke, the last in line, realized the severity of their situation. He tried his best to free up Jason, but his efforts went futile.
Hello.
If only he could reach
Hey, Prover. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Trying doing an art stream. Trying to get some progress with this piece. That brain. Trying to get some progress with this art piece, or well, art challenge basically. New mod. I don't need you to break my brain already. I'm already tired from work. No. I gotta try to read it. New mode. No. Is that Miku? No. Basically, what my art challenge for sis is basically, it's a randomly generated character design challenge I got from a random website. Basically a turquoise hair, nurse outfit, and what was it again? I keep forgetting. Oh yeah. I gotta draw the whip for some if I can. Let me attempt to draw the whip, draw the nay. Yeah, I guess I accidentally make it look like Miku. That would have been a good idea to make Miku the psycho nurse. Ooh, nice. But yeah, I'm doing currently right now. I'm doing shadows, right now.
and rescue Mark, the situation might turn into their favor. However, with Jason stuck just behind Mark, things seemed difficult. The air was growing thinner, and the damp chill of the cave was seeping into their bones, hypothermia looming over them. He could feel the air quality diminishing as the tunnel became more oppressive. The stakes were clear. If he didn't act quickly, Mark could suffocate, Jason would lose his composure, and they all could succumb to the conditions. Luke decided to leave his friends and go for help. The journey back would be long, and every second felt like a lifetime. Time was running out, and as Luke raced for the surface, Mark's strength was fading. Jason's panic was growing. Rescue efforts began the moment Luke reached the surface.
I'm addicted
breathless
to.
and frantic.
Hold on.
Explaining the situation to the local.
Thank you for subscribing. It means a lot to me. It really does mean a lot to me. But yeah, as I was saying, I suddenly got addicted to listening to cave disaster videos. I got addicted. I got hooked on it. So I'm gonna make you hooked on it as well. And the funny thing is, most of the comments are saying, rule number one of caving: do not go caving.
Local search and rescue team. Within an hour, a specialized cave rescue unit had been dispatched, equipped with advanced tools designed for this very scenario. The team included expert cavers, medics, and engineers skilled in handling extreme environments, but they knew this would be a challenging extraction. Upon arriving at the cave entrance, the rescue team immediately deployed a portable monitoring device to measure air quality inside. As suspected, the oxygen levels were dropping dangerously, and high concentrations of carbon dioxide were slowly.
Oh yeah, I remember when when I was in grade school, uh, they would also put 9/11 video. But specifically my history class would put up would play the full documentary of the 9/11 disaster. Also, sad fact, today is Paul Walker's birthday. Rip to the legend. May he rest in peace. Sorry to remind you, but yeah. There you go. I like that every time I reset my model, the booba physics go wild. Yeah, let's see here. I coughed as loud as I could. Oh, you have the habit of coughing as loud as you could too?
Building. With hypoxia now a serious threat, a lightweight oxygen delivery system was quickly prepared to be lowered into the cave using thin tubing, allowing the trapped men to breathe more easily while rescue efforts continued. The team descended into the cave with specialized rock drills, carbide-tipped chisels, and inflatable air bladders. These air bladders, once placed between the rock walls, could be slowly inflated to create just enough space to maneuver the trapped body parts free. Mark's situation was precarious. His chest was compressed by the rocks, making it difficult for him to expand his lungs fully. The medics knew they needed to act fast to prevent internal injuries from the crushing force. The challenge was to widen the crevice without compromising the structural integrity of the cave. As the rescue team drilled into the surrounding rock, vibrations were carefully controlled with handheld sonic drills, tools capable of minimizing potential collapse. Meanwhile, Jason,
do all this in one stroke for the
struggling with severe circulation
crude shadow tool.
A rescue medic crawled forward to assess his condition. His arm was pale and numb, but fortunately, blood flow hadn't been completely cut off. The rescue team knew they had to free Jason first before even attempting to reach Mark, who was wedged deeper between jagged rocks.
Ooh.
Jason wasn't stuck in the same way, but was pinned in place, unable to move forward or backward due to the narrow passage and Mark's position ahead. The rescuers quickly assessed the situation, realizing that Jason's mobility was key to getting to Mark. They started with Jason, gently positioning a rescue harness around his torso, careful not to scrape him against the rough cave walls. Using a mechanical advantage pulley system, they began pulling Jason backward while guiding his feet to find small footholds in the uneven, sharp ground. The cave's tight space left no room for error. Jason could barely breathe, his chest pressing against the stone, while his arms were braced against the cold rock to steady himself.
Oh, really? Nice. Yeah, I assume as soon as you subscribe, it'll start pushing my content onto your home feed. At least, what I noticed, it usually pushes out like kind of the same kind of content for like about a week or two, and after like the 2 week mark, it drastically the algorithm says, okay, you're not seeing this anymore. We need you to watch this trending thing so we can make money. Which always works.
After several tense minutes, Jason was finally pulled free. He gasped as he was dragged backward into a slightly wider part of the cave. Now, the rescuers could focus on Mark. Mark was in a much worse situation, wedged tightly between jagged rocks that were pressing painfully into his sides. The team had to work quickly and precisely. They inserted an air bladder, a small device that could inflate to create enough space between Mark
Nice.
and Mark without causing the fragile cave structure to collapse. Once the rocks were pried apart just enough, the team slipped a rescue harness around Mark's body. With careful coordination, they applied steady tension using the rope system, inching him out. Every tug was agonizing for Mark, his body scraped by the sharp stone, but the alternative was staying trapped in the diminishing air. After what felt like an eternity, they finally pulled him free, bloodied and bruised, but alive. They quickly wrapped him in an emergency thermal blanket.
As Mark is alive.
Jason, now free, followed closely behind, his arm swollen but functional. As the men reached the surface, medics immediately tended to their conditions. Both were hypothermic and severely dehydrated, but alive, thanks to the precise use of technology and the rescue team's expertise. On the morning of June 17, 2004, Steve Allburn and a group of friends from his church were filled with excitement as they set out for an adventure in Smith's Crack, a well-known cave system in Idaho. The warm air and the forest path leading to the cave buzzed with anticipation as the group hiked through the thick trees, talking and laughing about the exploration ahead. After trekking along the winding forest trail, they finally reached the cave's entrance, a dark, yawning opening that beckoned them inside. As they descended into the cave, they were immediately captivated by its beauty. Steve, a towering figure at 6'2" and 250 pounds, had never been one to shy away from a challenge. On the way in, he had easily slid down a narrow slot into a lower passage, gravity pulling him through.
Ask it. Lol. Yeah. I can't read that comment. I, I, I don't know how to read that comment. What the fuck are you trying to type? Also, Prover, I should let you know 2 rules for my streams. 1, no soliciting, and 2, no politics. It's just to keep the sole purpose is just to keep the stream as chill as possible. Despite some news being very important, it's just I just don't want to deal with. I don't want to deal with arguments in a chat. Alright, let's see here.
They navigated into the cave for hours and finally decided to go back. Every sound echoed off the walls, giving the cave a haunting yet thrilling atmosphere. While getting in was no difficult feat, getting back out was a different story. The same narrow slot that had been a breeze to descend now trapped him by his chest, refusing to let him pass. With gravity no longer assisting his movements, every inch upward felt like a battle. His broad frame now felt wedged tight against the jagged rock walls. His chest was completely wedged, pinned tightly between the sharp walls of the cave. His lungs had little room to expand.
How was your day been?
Feeling as if they were slowly being crushed. Each attempted movement only worsened the pressure, sending sharp jolts of pain through his body. Pinned in place, his face pressed painfully against the cold, jagged rock. Steve's breathing became labored. The rough surface scraped his skin with each attempted breath, and the confined space magnified his fear. His anxiety spiked. The overwhelming claustrophobia suffocated him as much as the cave walls themselves.
Glad you had a wonderful day.
Every inhale stirred up dust, filling his mouth and throat, triggering fits of coughing that left him.
At the very least, our work shift is done, and I get to chill. But yeah.
Gasping for air.
I really do hope I can improve my art skills, improve my programming skills, and soon start a 3D model, learning how to learn Blender, basically.
Desperate for any relief, he forced his lips to the side, trying to create even a sliver of space between his mouth and the rock.
I mean that is to be expected. Uh, YouTube TV and YouTube on PC and mobile have different algorithms for their streaming delay.
But it was hardly enough. To make matters
OCD
worse,
Gober.
as Steve was being pulled upward, his legs were stuck in a horizontal position within the narrow passage, leaving his body brutally contorted in a way no human body should bend. The unnatural twist sent unbearable pain shooting through his spine, every muscle strained beyond its limit. His hip bones took the brunt of the pressure, grinding painfully against the cave walls back and forth. The sensation of his spine compressing, the burning ache in his hips, and the relentless pressure on his ribs made every second feel like torture. His friends tried to pull him free, but gravity was no longer on his side, and every attempt only caused more pain. Hours passed, and as exhaustion set in, hope began
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
to dwindle. The group finally called for help, reaching the Elmore County Sheriff's Office at 8 p.m. Rescue crews arrived and tried repeatedly to free Steve, but nothing worked. His body was wedged too tightly. Finally, in a moment of desperation, someone suggested an unconventional solution, using vegetable shortening to grease him up. With no better options, rescuers grabbed a set of coveralls and coated them liberally with Crisco, then sent the slick suit into the cave for Steve to wear.
Um, that would be for you should be asking your doctor about that.
As he struggled to pull the coveralls over his aching body, it felt absurd, but he had no other choice. The rescuers, now determined, braced themselves for the effort. They started to pull from above while his friend behind kept pushing. Steve, wearing the greasy suit, started to slide above. He stood shakily on his friend's shoulders, forcing his large frame back into the merciless crack. Every movement sent sharp, searing pain through his ribs and spine, but he had to keep going. Slowly, agonizingly, the grease began to do its job. Inch by inch, the walls began to release their iron grip on his body. Steve's arms were grabbed by those pulling from above, and with each agonizing tug, he screamed in pain
Really?
as the rough stone.
I have autism and ADHD. Oh yeah. Uh, I have brain damage.
Scraped against his skin after what felt like a lifetime of pain and fear. Steve's body finally started to free up completely. At daybreak, after nearly 10 hours of excruciating pain, Steve emerged from the cave, battered, bruised, and shaken, but alive. The nightmare was finally over. Later, when asked about the horrific experience, he responded, "I might go caving again someday," with a weary smile, and continued with, "if I knew the holes were big enough," adding a bit of his humor. On April 30th, 2007, in the remote reaches of Dead Man's Cave, Texas, a tragic accident unfolded. Thomas Summers III, a 44-year-old manager and partner.
I slipped down a flight of stairs once. Essentially, the flight of stairs turned into a very bumpy slide.
Of the nearby tourist cave, Cave Without a Name, set out with his friend Brent Holbrook on what was meant to be a routine troubleshooting mission. Recent rains had raised the water levels in Dead Man's Cave, which sits on Summers' property, blocking access to areas where advanced cavers often explored. Their goal was to identify and clear any blockages that might be hindering the cave's outflow. By 2 p.m., the two men had ventured about 300 feet into the cave. The passage narrowed, and the ceiling lowered to just a few inches of airspace. With no helmets to protect them, the situation grew increasingly perilous. Thomas, determined to press on, swam ahead while Brent hesitated, realizing the risk was too high to continue. As Thomas swam further into Dead Man's Cave, the passage grew tighter, and the ceiling dropped, leaving just a few inches of airspace between the cold water and the rough stone above. The water, fed.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me. One time when I was as a kid, It was that I was at a mall. I was trying to catch up to my older siblings, and I ended up slipping on the floor and then face planted. Like the sponge style face plant.
By recent rains was slowly rising, and the air pocket he relied on grew dangerously narrow. With every stroke, he pressed forward, keeping his head as close to the surface as possible, desperately trying to find the precious few inches of air left in the cramped tunnel. At first, he breathed carefully, ensuring his face stayed above the waterline, but as he moved deeper, the air began to feel stale, thick. The cave's atmosphere, already starved of fresh oxygen, started to fill with carbon dioxide from his own exhalations. Each breath he took brought in less oxygen and more of the suffocating gas. His chest grew tighter, his breaths shorter, and panic began to claw at him as he realized that the air pocket
Yeah, that
wasn't
sounds very
diminishing fast enough.
autistic.
He felt lightheaded, dizzy, as if the cave itself was spinning around him. The stale, oxygen-starved air filled his lungs, but it wasn't enough. Disoriented and gasping, Thomas's energy drained as the water lapped at his chin. His body gave out before he could make it back, and in the dark, cold waters of Dead Man's Cave, he slipped beneath the surface, unable to fight the pull of the water any longer. Brent swam a few feet behind Thomas, his heart pounding as the passage grew tighter. He called out, but only heard the sputtering of Thomas's breath echoing through the cave. The air felt heavy, and something didn't seem right. Then, there was only silence. No response, no movement. Panic surged as Brent shouted again, but the stillness of the cave swallowed his voice. Realizing something had gone terribly wrong, he knew he had to turn back for help. Within hours, a massive rescue operation was underway. More than 90 rescuers gathered at the entrance of Dead Man's Cave, determined to find Thomas. Local fire and rescue teams arrived first, followed by specialized cave divers and volunteers from nearby areas. The atmosphere was tense as crews worked.
Hey, you notice it? Wait. You also notice the difference between Pepsi and Cola? Here's the thing. I also love Pepsi over Cola. I even mentioned to one old friend, Cola just tastes for me. Cola just tastes like how to explain this? I forget the exact words to it, but it was something along the lines of so, just goopy enough to not initially notice it until you're a few sips in. But I generally love Pepsi over Coca Cola. Also, recently I've been been preferring what was it not Dr Pepper Mountain Dew. It half a cup of Mountain Dew and half a cup of Sprite it is fucking good. You get you get the sparkliness of Sprite and the punching taste of Mountain Dew. I tried to mix them though. Oh, you're the one. You're also the type who mixes a bunch of sodas together. I used to do that too, and most of the time it just tasted gross. I kept doing it though until I was about 16 years old. Then I started doing it again recently.
Tirelessly to lower the water level using powerful pumps, hoping to clear the flooded passage before it was too late. Hours dragged on. The rescue teams knew they were in a race against time. By nightfall, the water levels had dropped just enough for cave divers Jean Kraka and Linda Pallett to enter the flooded tunnel. They carefully navigated the narrow, suffocating passage, where even a slight mistake could prove fatal. Armed with only minimal equipment, the divers had to rely on their training and instincts as they searched the dark waters for any sign of Thomas. After hours of painstaking work, Jean and Linda finally located his body, submerged in the tight air pocket where he had struggled. The realization was devastating. Thomas had perished just feet from safety. Despite their efforts, it was clear that he had drowned in the frigid, oxygen-deprived passage. By 9 p.m., the rescuers emerged from the cave, carrying Thomas's lifeless form. The weight of the loss hung heavily over the team as they quietly...
You're the only one. You're not the only one who tried M&Ms and popcorn mixing together. I gagged on the first bite. Like, nope, nope, nope. Bad idea, very much bad idea. Ironically enough, I can handle a lot of spice. I tested myself. Spice. I have a very high spice tolerance. Okay, let's see here. Bucket. Yep.
exited the cave, knowing that even their best efforts couldn't change the tragic outcome. The cause of death was determined to be drowning, but there have been more to the tragedy. The low airspace in the cave, combined with bad air, disoriented Thomas as he swam deeper into the narrowing passage. Brent later shared that Thomas's labored breathing, followed by sputtering, was the last sound he heard. No splashing, no struggle. Some speculate that Thomas pushed too far into the tight airspace, running out of room to breathe before he even realized the danger. On March 10, 2001, Kenny Nelson, a 14-year-old adventurer...
Yeah. Also, for the parents who may be watching, maybe lurking over the stream, do not give a 10-year-old liquid medication. Like, not saying like at all if there's requirement for some reason with that. Oh, that is me with chips. Like one moment I have a full bag of chips, and then next moment it's empty. Like how do I describe this? I kind of just zone out while I'm eating. As soon as I start eating, I immediately just blank out. I was like, okay, and then where did my bag of chips go?
joined his church group for an outing to the notorious Devil's Den Cave. Devil's Den Cave was not for the faint-hearted. Hidden within the jagged hills of Arkansas, legend spoke of its disorienting tunnels and tight crevices that could swallow a person whole, with some claiming they had heard ghostly echoes deep within its depths. But perhaps the most notorious area of all was Satan's Maze, a twisted labyrinth of jagged rocks and narrow openings. It wasn't just a cave, it was a trap, and the devil was always waiting, making anyone who dares to enter do as he wishes. The church group, however, was eager to explore, full of excitement as they trekked through the rocky terrain and made their way to the cave's entrance. For most, it was their first time venturing into a cave. As they entered, the towering rock walls and narrow passages drew them further into the cave's depths. Kenny, being one of the youngest, felt the thrill of adventure and pressed forward with curiosity and excitement. The group pressed on, squeezing through tight spaces and crawling over uneven rocks. Just as the cave seemed to level out, Kenny spotted a small opening that was just 12 inches wide, barely large enough to fit a tablet. Beyond it, he glimpsed what looked like an intriguing chamber, which was around 15 feet deep, beckoning him forward with the promise of adventure. Rationally, turning back would have been the smart choice, but curiosity got the better of him. Perhaps that's why it was called
Welcome
Satan's
back.
Maze, tempting and misleading, as if the devil himself was urging him to push through, or as they say, the devil made him do it. Kenny, driven by excitement and a sense of challenge, ignored his instincts and crawled in, not realizing that Satan had other plans for him. Kenny crawled headfirst into the crevice, convinced he could make it through to the other side. The narrow walls scraped his shoulders as he wriggled forward. He thought it was just tight at first, but as he pushed deeper, he realized he was in trouble. About halfway through, his body shifted, and suddenly, he was stuck, lying on his side, wedged tight. He tried to move, but the walls pressed in against him, pinning his arms awkwardly. He couldn't go forward or backward, and with every desperate breath, the rocks seemed to squeeze tighter around his chest. The realization hit him hard. He'd made a terrible mistake, and now he couldn't move.
So most people are using Clip-Studio EX or IBS Paint or like Krita. I'm using Fire Alpaca, and recently, Fire Alpaca released their Pro version on Steam, so I bought that. The Pro version is $40 lifetime, one-time purchase as per Steam's requirement. And I fucking love this. There are many quality of life improvements, including you notice the brushes on the left side. Right here. Yeah, see those brushes? On the normal Fire Alpaca, we don't have the visualization of the actual stroke. For the Pro version, there's visualization. It also added new added stuff. Here, what are the tools? There we go. Liquify, that's a fucking new one. But yeah, I'm still discovering many new things about this version of Fire Alpaca. And I've been using Fire Alpaca for about a year now. So yeah. It's pretty much the same as the original Fire Alpaca, but only differences there are some quality of life improvements and again, and there's a few stuff added, few more new tools added.
His group tried desperately to free him, but to no avail. Realizing they needed professional help, they quickly left the cave and called for assistance. Within hours, park rangers and local cave rescue teams arrived. The rescue operation began, but Kenny's horizontal position made it nearly impossible for rescuers to reach him effectively. His body was wedged too tightly, and every attempt to pull him out was met with little success. His chest ached as his ribs pressed against the rock, and his spine twisted painfully under the pressure. His legs, now useless in a nearly horizontal position. Kenny's mind raced as he fought the growing sense of suffocation and rising anxiety. His horizontal position deep within...
I mean, we can start with like a very cheap tablet, and use like IBS or Krita on it. I mean, that's why I initially started with when I had like a very cheap Samsung tablet. I started with IBS when I was like 10 years old. And soon, I think it was for 2 years I was on that. And accidentally broke that tablet, so I didn't have another one for about 6 years. So what I did for those 6 years is traditional art with color pencils, markers, and whatnot. Helped me tremendously. But now I think it was for about two, I think, not 6 years. It was 4 years I did traditional art, and then I had to move out of my parents' house, so didn't get to draw for. I left all my art supplies, unfortunately, so didn't get to draw for about 2 years until I got my PC. Finally, be able to use my tablet again, and well, got a PC, got an art tablet, and then yeah, here I am. It took a long time to save up, but it was worth it.
In the narrow crevice made any attempt to get ropes around him nearly impossible. The rescuers crouched in the tight passage, trying to maneuver the ropes into place,
Oh,
but the
cool.
confined space left little room to work. Each tug on the rope caused Kenny to wince in pain as the jagged rocks dug into his sides. Hours passed with little progress. The rescuers tried different angles and methods, but Kenny remained stuck, the crevice refusing to release its hold on him. Finally, someone suggested
Okay.
applying grease to help ease Kenny's body out of the crevice. They coated him with as much as they could and encouraged him to move sideways.
Oh, nice. But hey, numbers don't really matter if you're not consistent with your with uploading or streaming.
Slowly, agonizingly, Kenny inched forward, every shift of his body sending sharp waves of pain through his chest, back, and legs. The friction was unbearable, but with the help of the rescuers pulling from above, he began to slide free, inch by inch. After nearly 5 long, torturous hours of pain and struggle, Kenny was finally freed from the crevice. Exhausted, battered, and sore, he stood up, his legs weak beneath him. But despite the agony, he managed to walk out of the cave on his own, a survivor of one of the most terrifying experiences of his life, as if he had danced with the devil and lived to tell the tale. On March 21st, 1996, Randy, Winell, Sam, and Eric set out for a day of adventure. It was Eric's first ever caving trip, and his enthusiasm was
Well, even if you
contagious.
hold on.
Fault Cave
Even if you can't stream, you can still upload videos and stuff like that. So before I started streaming, it was like I think it was during the time I was using art supplies like color pencil and markers and stuff like that. What I did was I would do like a collage, like a kind of like collage thing. I'm not sure how to explain it, but like I would make the rough draft, take a picture of that, and then make the line art, take a picture of that, make the flat color, take a picture of that, and then the shadows, take a picture of that, and then the final touches, and then take a picture of that. And then I'll put it in like a collage, and like a collage video, like a slideshow kind of thing, and yeah, that's how it started. And on my YouTube channel, you can still see my collage. I still have my collages up on my YouTube channel. It's under the shorts. But yeah. You try that. Also, if you're using doing traditional or pencil stuff like that, what I suggest is a kind of like, how to explain this. Basically, it is a drawing light. So lol. But yeah, you could get a drawing light. It's not like a normal light. It's like you know those kind of those extra lights you see in the hospitals, except it's in the form of like a mini tablet shape, and then you do your rough draft, and then you could put another paper on top of that while using light, because you put your paper on top of the light, and then a second paper so you can do the line art over it, and then you got 2 papers, one with the line art and one with the rough draft. That's how I used to do it. Unfortunately, I don't have that a drawing light anymore.
near Denver was known for its treacherous passages and eerie, haunting echoes. Locals had even nicknamed parts of the cave with ominous names like the Crack of Doom, a menacing narrow slot that had trapped many before. Equipped with little more than torches and basic gear, they weren't exactly prepared for the challenges the cave was infamous for. But the thrill was undeniable. Randy had done a few caving trips before, but for Eric, this was a completely new world. They trekked through the dense forest towards the entrance of the cave. The group wiggled through the jagged rocks and narrow passages. As they moved deeper, they could see the dispersion of settled, undisturbed dirt. The tight passages became more confining with every crawl. The cave's walls pressed in on all sides, but Eric pressed on, the thrill of adventure driving him forward. Then came the crack of doom. A narrow slot in the cave that demanded complete focus and careful navigation. Eric attempted to squeeze through, but the cave had other plans. His body slipped into a head-down position, and with each movement, he became more stuck. The harder he tried to free himself, the deeper he wedged into the unforgiving rock. Panic surged through him as he realized he was trapped. The walls seemed to squeeze tighter with every breath, the sharp rocks pressing into his sides, and the weight of gravity pulling him further into the abyss. All the pressure was coming towards his neck and head. Sam and Randy tried desperately to pull him out, but Eric's position, head down and wedged tight, made it impossible. Every tug seemed to only make matters worse. Trying anything would put his neck into more strain. Eric's heavy breathing showed signs of panic. All the dirt was making him suffocate. Each deep breath made him feel like his heart would stop at any moment. His companions knew they couldn't free him on their own. Randy quickly scrambled out of the cave to get help, leaving Sam with Eric, who was growing colder by the minute. Randy used his cell phone to call a local caver, Jim Neely, who quickly organized a rescue. By the time the team arrived, firefighters and experienced cavers were already working in the confined space to free Eric. The situation was dire. Eric had been stuck for hours and his strength was fading. The rescue was a painstaking process. They carefully inspected the crack of doom, realizing any kind of drilling could make the debris fall and compile towards his already stuck head, making breathing even more difficult. They went for an alternate option. First, they stripped off Eric's clothes to reduce friction against the rock. Then, they coated his...
Cat bites tail, you bite the cat back. You give it a little nibble, even though the cat will scratch you. I don't really... Oh. Yeah, I used to have a cat. I made sure to keep her away from my PC stuff, so... Yeah, I made sure to keep her away from PC stuff, so she soon learned, hey, just don't touch your PC. And yeah, because I used to have a PC separate from my bedroom. Earrings itch? Yeah. Is it clip-on or is it piercing? Clip-ons, either way, it itches. Oh no, I have a scratch. Ah. Itty bitty titty scratch. Anywho.
Entire body with Vaseline to help him slide free. The cavers worked in silence, knowing that every second counted. The cold, damp air of the cave made hypothermia a real threat, and the position Eric was trapped in made his situation all the more dangerous. As they applied the Vaseline, they noticed his body starting to shift ever so slightly, giving them hope. Methodically, they continued coating every inch, determined not to miss a spot. With each application, Eric's body became more mobile, until finally, with one last effort, the team was able to free him, sliding him smoothly out from the crack of doom. His body was scraped and bruised, but he was alive. Shivering from the cold and exhaustion, Eric was able to walk out of the cave with help from the team. The hike down the mountain was slow, but Eric
Not by
knew without
much.
further
Not much.
assistance. His first caving trip had turned into a nightmare, but he had survived the crack of doom, a memory he would never forget. Joseph Lobato, 29, thought of himself as adventurous, capable, and confident in his ability to handle whatever the outdoors threw at him. He'd taken his girlfriend on a few small climbing outings in the past, and convinced her, and perhaps himself, that he knew what he was doing. In reality, his experience barely extended beyond basic outdoor activities, and he had no real caving knowledge. But none of that stopped him from confidently entering the Yo-Yo Pit. In late summer, Lobato ignored a mandatory national forest closure due to extreme fire hazards and decided to visit Yo-Yo Pit, also known as Panky's Crater, near Santa Fe with his girlfriend. Yo-Yo Pit, a remote ancient volcanic vent with a 130-foot vertical drop, was located in a secluded area accessible only by high-clearance vehicles. What started as a casual adventure quickly turned deadly. The couple's reason for being there wasn't entirely clear, but at some point, 𝙂𝙚 dropped his cell phone into the gaping pit. Determined to retrieve it, he went back to his vehicle and grabbed a collection of gear: a nylon tow strap, pulleys, heavy-duty chain, and 2 ropes, none of which were intended for climbing or rappelling. 𝙂𝙗, despite having no caving experience, told his girlfriend that he knew what he was doing, though she remained uneasy. But then again, as he prepared to descend, 𝙂𝙗 brushed off his girlfriend's concerns, assuring her he had done this type of thing before. His self-assurance blinded him to the danger.
Jupiter! You get more stupider! Hey, Sosa, how are you? Let's go! Anywho, welcome to our stream. How are you doing today? Hopefully you're eating, hopefully you're hydrating, making sure you're stretched, and make sure you actually use the bathroom. Alright, let's see here.
The rope wasn't meant for life-saving purposes, and his knots were haphazard at best. Yet, he pressed on, believing that his confidence alone would carry him through. When he began his descent, sliding awkwardly with the rope beneath him, it was clear things weren't going as planned. After a few feet, he switched to descending hand over hand, but his grip was slipping, and soon he lost control. As he tumbled towards the bottom, he
big
let
mistake.
out a nervous, almost ironic laugh, as if realizing mid-fall that he had seriously messed up. He landed hard on a ledge, but somehow the absurdity of the situation made him laugh again. His girlfriend, still watching from above, heard his voice echo up from the pit, full of misplaced humor. She recalls that Joseph was laughing all the way as he fell to the bottom. However, the laughter soon gave way to grim reality. At first, he joked about breaking his arm, trying to reassure both himself and his girlfriend that he was still okay. But moments later, his voice changed. Pain radiated through his body, sharp and unrelenting. His back began to seize up, and he quickly realized something was very wrong. As minutes passed, numbness spread through his body. He could no longer feel his back, and soon the paralysis set in. With panic rising, 𝙂𝙗 told his girlfriend he couldn't move and urged her to get help. His confidence was
Spinal
shattered,
paralysis.
replaced by the creeping dread of knowing he was trapped, helpless, and in unbearable pain. His body throbbed, his arm hung useless, and his back was immobilized. Each breath felt heavier, a painful reminder of the growing hopelessness in the pit. And as his girlfriend rushed for help, his injuries and the realization of his mistake weighed down on him like the pit itself. The only cell phone they had was lost deep within the pit, so she was forced to drive back over rough terrain, desperately searching for help. After hours, she found a payphone and called 911. By the time search and rescue teams arrived, 𝙂𝙗 had gone silent. Rescuers rappelled into the pit, only to discover that he had succumbed to his injuries. His body was carefully placed in a litter and lifted out, marking the tragic end to a poorly prepared adventure that could have been avoided. 30th September 2016, Luke Nelson had always been the kind of person who craved adventure. Having explored countless caves before, he wasn't one to shy away from the riskier side of things. On the morning of his last trip, he was particularly excited. He had set his sights on a cave nestled deep in the Texas wilderness. The cave had a reputation for being tricky to navigate, but that's what Luke loved about it. He packed his gear, double-checked his map, and told his sister that he was heading out for what he called a quick cave dive. What he didn't tell her was that he planned to go alone. The cave, known by locals as Silent Descent, was a complex system of tunnels, many of which had never been fully mapped. Sections of the cave were blocked by rock falls or rising water, making it dangerous for even experienced cavers. One area in particular had gained a reputation for inevitable dangers, an unmapped section referred to as the Dead Man's Tunnel. Luke knew about this section, but curiosity, as always, got the best of him. The entrance to the cave was about a 2-hour hike from the nearest road, located within the rugged Texas countryside. Luke had trekked the path before. As he neared the cave's mouth, he took a deep breath and entered, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline. Earlier that morning, Luke had called his friend, hoping to convince him to join. His friend, however, had a prior commitment and warned Luke about the dangers of caving alone. but Luke brushed off the concern. Now, as Luke made his way deeper into the cave, those words
Goofers.
circled back in his mind.
Has
After
everyone
hours
been?
of navigating through narrow passages and slippery rock formations, Luke reached the junction that wasn't on his map. A new, unexplored route branched off to the left, while the main path veered to the right. He hesitated, his instincts urging caution, but the obsession of knowing the unknown was too strong. He veered left, convinced that this new route might hold the thrill he was after. The passage was tight, much narrower than he anticipated, and as he squeezed through, the walls began to close in around him. The ceiling lowered, forcing him to crouch, and soon he was crawling on his stomach, inching forward in the tight space. Several feet in, Luke realized his mistake. The atmosphere was dusty, showing signs of how no one had been there before. He tried to back up, but the walls pressed against his body, locking him in place. His chest felt stiff as he realized he was stuck. He had taken the wrong route, a path too narrow for a full-grown man. Panic surged through him as he squirmed, trying to free himself, but the rock seemed to tighten its grip. He convinced himself to stay calm, but with every attempt to move, the rock pressed harder against him. The narrow passage left him little room to expand his chest fully. The air felt stale, almost suffocating. Fear gripped him. All he could think about that time was his daughter and the advice of his friend. He shouted for help, though he knew he was alone. There was no one to hear him, no one to rescue him.
Not me being
Hours
hungry.
later, when Luke hadn't returned, his sister began to worry. She called
You
Luke's
gotta
friend,
eat.
who was immediately alarmed when he
Gotta
learned
go
that
eat.
Luke had ventured into the cave alone. They
You gotta go eat. You can't starve yourself. Go eat.
wasted no time. He alerted local authorities, and soon a rescue team was mobilized. When the rescuers arrived, they could see signs that someone had recently entered the cave. Footprints leading to the mouth, a freshly disturbed patch of dirt near the entrance. They quickly set up a command post and began searching the mapped sections of the cave. Hours passed with no sign of Luke. The mapped areas were clear, and the team started to fear the worst. Then, a sharp-eyed rescuer spotted something out of place. A small carabiner, likely dropped by Luke, lay near the entrance to the unmapped section of the cave, the infamous Dead Man's Tunnel. The find sent a chill through the team. It was clear Luke had veered off the planned route and taken the dangerous path. The rescue crew knew that exploring this uncharted area was risky, but they also knew it was their only chance of finding Luke. One of the rescuers, small enough to fit through the tight, claustrophobic passage, volunteered to go in. With a rope securely tied around him, the team carefully lowered him into the narrow tunnel. The passage twisted and turned, tightening in places where even the most experienced cavers would feel trapped. Then, in the dim light, he saw it. Luke wedged deep in the passage but alive. His helmet had been knocked off, and his arms were pinned awkwardly beneath him, as if he had fought to free himself but eventually on the brink of death. Luke was overjoyed when he heard the rescuer. Although exhausted, this gave him the will to fight more. The rescuer signaled to the team and immediately got into action. First, they were concerned about his body temperature, so they fired up and used a portable stove to produce heat while they planned the rescue. The plan was to widen up the gap, set up a pulley system, and pull him out. With extreme care, they spent hours chiseling away rock, careful not to cause a collapse. Once the gap was wide enough, they set up a pulley system. A rescuer was lowered in, securing a rope around Luke's body. Slowly, the team worked together, pulling him through the tight space. After a tense and exhausting effort, they finally brought Luke out. After being treated and stabilized, Luke was overwhelmed with gratitude. Lying in the hospital bed, he told that all he could think about was his daughter. With a newfound clarity, Luke promised himself he would never take such a reckless risk again. He was given a second chance, and for that, he was truly thankful. New South Wales, located on the eastern side of Australia, is a state with a rich history. It's believed that the first people arrived in the area around 60,000 years ago. Among them were the 𝙂𝙚 people, who lived across a vast 4,100 square miles of land that included the rugged Blue Mountains, a range known for its deep valleys and challenging terrain. One notable feature of this region is a system of caves that the 𝙂𝙚 called dark places, now known as the 𝑘𝐺𝐺 caves. The history of these caves goes back far beyond the first human explorers. Speleologists have discovered that the 𝙤𝙤 caves are around 340 million years old, making them the oldest known open cave system on Earth. Today, they're also some of the most popular tourist destinations. Visitors to the 𝙤𝙤 caves now have a range of experiences to choose from. There are show caves equipped with man-made safety features for easier exploration. For a more natural experience, tourists can explore dark caves, which have stairs and handrails, but no permanent lighting. Lastly, there are the adventure caves, untouched and available for self-exploration or guided tours. Despite the risks, the adventure caves have seen very few emergencies. In fact, most cave rescuers have rarely been called to the scene of an accident there. That changed, however, in March 2024. On March 30th, 6 cavers from the National University Caving Club in Canberra arrived at the 𝙤𝙤 caves for a self-guided tour. The caves, despite their popularity with tourists, are a favorite among the club members.
Yes, I know what Teto is. I know who Miku is. I know who Nera is. When I was a kid, I was also a very addicted to Vocaloid and Nightcore. See here. I could put some shadows here. Pardon.
For their remote and untouched areas. The group was familiar with the cave system, but not the specific section they planned to explore that day. After gearing up, they began their journey. For nearly 4 hours, the group squeezed through tight tunnels and obstacles, heading toward a section known as the Row Hole, which would be the final and most challenging part of the day. The first 4 members of the group managed to worm their way through, but Tim and Eliza,
Yeah, I know
the last
Mesmerizer.
2, were still behind.
I was actually around for when the song released.
Tim went first, carefully inching his way into the narrow tunnel. What none of them expected was how tight the passage became as they advanced. It was the most difficult squeeze they had ever experienced, but the first 4 members had made it through without much trouble. As Tim moved forward on his elbows, his shoulders squeezed in, he encountered a bend just before the tunnel turned almost completely vertical. This required some twisting to navigate, but as Tim tried to contort his body to fit the curve, he suddenly became stuck. A sharp rock jutting from the tunnel wall pinned him in place, trapping him. He couldn't move forward or backward. Eliza, waiting behind him, was also trapped, as this was the only exit nearby. More concerning was Tim's position. He was nearly upside down, which is extremely dangerous. This situation was eerily similar to the infamous Nutty Putty Cave incident in 2009, when a man named John Jones became trapped in a narrow cave passage upside down and later died from cardiac arrest after rescuers struggled to free him. Being stuck in this position puts extra strain on the heart, which must work harder to pump blood throughout the body. When Tim realized he couldn't free himself, he called for help. But none of the others, who had already passed through the tight passage, could return to assist. At 7:20 p.m., a call was made to emergency services, and rescuers rushed to the scene. Upon arrival, the rescue leader knew this would be a difficult mission due to the tight space and Tim's inverted position. Paramedics quickly reached Tim, giving him water while the rescue team devised a plan. The leader determined that the only way to free Tim was to chip away at the rock that had him trapped. Entering the cave head first, the rescue leader carefully worked his way into the tight space beneath Tim. Armed with a drill, he began making small holes in the rock, with dust and debris spraying into both his and Tim's faces. After drilling, he pulled out a chisel and instructed Tim to stay as still as possible. For nearly 10 hours, the rescue leader worked tirelessly in the
I understand that. If you ever decide like you do traditional stream or make a video of traditional art, Kugurumi and black artist gloves. A Kugurumi suit and black artist gloves. It'll be your best friend.
cramped, dark tunnel, chipping away at the rock. Finally, at 4:45 a.m. on Easter Sunday, Tim was freed and able to crawl out of the narrow passage. Eliza followed shortly after, and both walked out of the 𝙤𝙤 caves, shaken but unharmed. despite being stuck only about 130 feet, 40 meters, from the cave exit, Tim's ordeal could have ended much worse. Unfortunately, people involved in the upcoming story weren't as lucky as the people in the previous. As mentioned in the start of the video, this story is the most unique, since the caves here are not the destinations that attracts tourists. However, despite of that, 30 people gathered together to set out on the...
I mean, yeah, fundamentally better, yeah. But also, I like to challenge myself. I like to constantly challenge myself so I can improve. It's like, okay, look at this hand. What can I do to improve it? I could do this, I could do that. I could learn how to make it thin, and the fingers more thinner, whatnot. I do what I can.
adventure. For context, around 12 million years ago, an underwater volcano in the Atlantic Ocean erupted multiple times over 9 million years. This, combined with tectonic plate movements, eventually formed the island of Tenerife, the largest of Spain's Canary Islands. Tenerife is located about 300 miles, 480 kilometers, off the western coast of Africa and is home to nearly 1 million people. However, it attracts even more visitors annually, with over...
Yeah, it can't be doom and gloom all the time. If you want to improve, you gotta have the mindset to improve. If you don't, you're not gonna improve. Plain and simple.
5 million tourists coming for its beautiful beaches and diverse landscape, which covers just 785
That also includes
miles. While most visitors come for the beaches, Tenerife's...
That also includes asking yourself what you can do, and also asking others what you can do or how you can live.
Landscape also features dense pine forests in the center and steep cliffs along the coast, including many caves. Unlike other famous destinations, the island's caves are not widely visited, making them a hidden treasure for adventurous travelers. Scientists are particularly interested in these caves because many are actually lava tubes formed by volcanic eruptions. When thick lava flows slowly, it cools on the outside while remaining hot on the inside, creating tunnels as it moves. Over time, the lava recedes, leaving behind these tunnels, which are now a major feature of Tenerife's underground systems. One of the most famous lava tubes is 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚, the largest volcanic tunnel in Europe, stretching 11 miles, 18 kilometers. These lava tubes, or galleries, are scattered across the island and often connect to one another. On Saturday, February 10th, 2007, nearly 30 people gathered on Tenerife's western side for a hike through one of these lava tubes. Organized by the Tenerife Association of Friends of Nature, the group included several scholarship recipients from the Canary Astrophysics Institute.
Cool.
They set off, enjoying the island's peaks and valleys. By 2 p.m., they reached a mountain with two options: go over or through it. Since the hike was meant to be leisurely, they chose to go through a lava tube that connected the two valleys. However, unknown to them, they entered the wrong tube. Without an experienced guide, they relied on directions sent by phone. The group ventured deeper into the lava tube, believing it was the right path. By 3 p.m., they were over a mile inside the mountain when something felt wrong. Several hikers fainted one after another, with 16 out of 29 people losing consciousness. Those near the back, feeling dizzy as well, managed to turn around and escape. At 4:45 p.m., the escapees called emergency services, and rescuers quickly arrived. Before entering the tube,
I can't read
the
that.
hikers who escaped reported a strange gas smell just before the others passed out. Rescuers needed to be cautious, as the narrow tube, only about 6 feet, 2 meters wide and high at its largest point, made the rescue challenging. Some unconscious hikers regained consciousness and walked out. But by 5,000 feet, 1,400 meters into the tunnel, rescuers began to find those who hadn't woken up. The gas smell became stronger the further they went. Throughout the night and into the next morning, rescuers worked carefully. 8 hikers were airlifted to the hospital with breathing problems, while 2 had more serious injuries due to the positions they passed out in. By February 11th, only 6 hikers remained inside, but they had been leading the group and were the deepest in the cave. Unfortunately, the concentration of gas was highest there. 20 hours after the hike began, the rescue took a tragic turn when the last 6 hikers were found dead from oxygen deprivation. The lack of oxygen likely caused their deaths long before the first hikers escaped. When the brain is deprived of oxygen, it takes just minutes for irreversible damage to occur. In the aftermath, experts explained that the hikers had unknowingly entered one of the most dangerous areas. Tenerife, being a volcanic island, has gases produced by the molten rock beneath the surface. These gases travel through the lava tubes, displacing breathable air, which is why the hikers passed out before realizing the danger. The local government declared 3 days of mourning to honor the victims of this tragic event. The last story is what led to a $12 million lawsuit. Stick tight to find out. On November 1st, 2020, Lake McDonald, the largest lake in Glacier National Park, became the scene of this unfortunate incident. The lake stretches about 10 miles long, is over a mile wide, and reaches depths of nearly 500 feet, making it a popular spot for experienced divers. Located in the Rocky Mountains at an altitude of 3,153 feet, it presents unique challenges for divers, especially because high-altitude diving requires careful attention to buoyancy and decompression due to lower atmospheric pressure. In November, the cold water, near freezing, adds extra difficulty, with risks like hypothermia if divers aren't properly equipped.
Hold on.
The plan for the day's dive was straightforward.
Now for the moment you've been waiting for. 1, 2, 3. Make a beam.
Ford, Linnea Mills, along with a group of divers that included instructor Debbie Snow, trainee Bob Gentry, and a 14-year-old known as 𝙂𝙤, were set to dive into Lake McDonald's to practice high-altitude and cold water diving skills. However, several warning signs went unnoticed before the dive began. Linnea had purchased a second-hand dry suit, an essential piece of gear meant to keep divers warm by trapping a layer of air between the body and the cold water. Unfortunately, her suit was missing a crucial part, the inflator hose. Without it, Linnea wouldn't be able to add air to her suit as she descended, leading the suit to squeeze tightly due to the water pressure. This would not only restrict her movement, but also make it difficult to breathe. Sadly, neither Lania nor her instructors realized the missing equipment during the pre-dive checks. As daylight faded and temperatures dropped below freezing, the group proceeded with the dive despite poor conditions. The instructors
I
set
can
proper
swim
gear checks
somewhat,
and a pre-dive briefing.
but I generally don't like
Essential for
swimming. I was kind of forced to take a swimming class when I was a toddler. And again, a second swimming class was mandatory within the school. So the first one was at a YMCA, and the second one was in my elementary school swimming class, which is mandatory.
In such challenging conditions, both instructors, Debbie Snow and Seth Liston, had limited experience with dry suits and high-altitude diving, adding to the risks. Linnea Mills was also burdened with 44 pounds of lead weights placed in her dry suit and buoyancy control device pockets, making it nearly impossible to release them in an emergency, risking an uncontrollable descent. When they entered the water, Linnea Mills began struggling almost immediately. The cold water squeezed the air out of her suit, making it difficult to move and breathe. As the group descended deeper, the situation worsened. She couldn't control her buoyancy properly, and the pressure of the water made it even harder for her to breathe. At one point, she signaled,
I'm not gonna add it.
but her instructor didn't notice. A fellow diver, Bob Gentry, saw her sinking uncontrollably. Gentry started noticing something was wrong. Gentry tried to catch up to her, reaching her at a depth of 26
Should have
meters.
added beforehand,
You could
but
see she was in severe
too late.
trouble. Her movements were frantic as the suit continued to crush her. In the struggle, lost her regulator, her main source of air. Gentry attempted to share his air with her, but they were running out fast. At a depth of 32 meters, Gentry was faced with a life-or-death decision. He had to abandon his efforts and return to the surface, or risk dying himself. Gentry made a rapid ascent, surfacing in less than a minute, a dangerous move that put him at risk for decompression sickness, also known as the bends. Meanwhile, at the surface, Snow and Liston were still unaware of the life-threatening situation unfolding below. When Gentry finally emerged, he frantically alerted Snow to the emergency. Snow made a brief attempt to dive down, and by this time...
What was that? My bestie's assistant for what? What the fuck? Oh my goodness. Okay, that's funny. That's funny.
The fading light and cold temperatures made the search even more difficult. A second dive was organized, and eventually, Linnеa's lifeless body was found at a depth of 39 meters. Linnеa's family was devastated by her loss. They remembered her as a bright, dedicated young woman with a passion for diving and marine biology. Her attention to detail, adventurous spirit, and eagerness to learn were qualities admired by everyone who knew her. Her sudden death left a deep void in the lives of her family, friends, and the diving community. After her death, Linnеa's family filed a $12 million negligence lawsuit against the dive school, its instructors, and PADI Worldwide, the organization that certifies diving programs. The lawsuit accused the instructors of gross negligence, pointing to failures in gear checks, insufficient training, and poor supervision. It also questioned PADI's responsibility for ensuring its members followed safety protocols. Though the civil case was settled, federal investigators chose not to file criminal charges against the instructors, citing insufficient evidence to prove criminal negligence. Despite the settlement, Linnеa's family continued advocating for better accountability in the diving industry, hoping her story would highlight the critical importance of proper training, equipment checks, and supervision in high-risk activities like diving.
It's quite unfortunate though. Long words. Very long words. So many long words. It's the longest word in the longest word book. The Verge. Wasn't singing. Okay.
Today,
There we go. Which is ironic because I think that the person who invented that was trolling.
we will be looking at two horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. The first one in particular is about an instructor making a fatal assumption, putting not only his own life in danger, but also the 12 other kids alongside him. As for the second one, it's a dive that was meant to become a tragic disaster from the start. As always, viewer discretion
Is advised.
On 9th April 2005, a young man named Richard Harness led an expedition of 12 eager children in the depths of one of the most notorious caves known as the Devil's Den Cave. At 20 years old, Richard believed himself experienced enough to guide this school field trip through the underground labyrinth beneath the Ozark Mountains. His previous visits to the cave system had given him confidence, perhaps too much of it. While Richard briefed the children, Melissa Jones, another instructor, remained outside as she waited for another group of children to lead later in the day. The temperature outside hovered around 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius. But within the limestone passages, a constant 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius, awaited them, cool enough to slowly sap body heat over hours of exposure. The children, ranging from 8 to 12 years old, moved excitedly as they donned their helmets and switched on their flashlights. None of them had been in a wild cave before. Their only experiences with underground spaces were commercial show caves with paved walkways and electric lighting. Richard carried a small backpack with water bottles, energy bars, a first aid kit, and extra batteries, standard preparations for a trip planned to last only 3 hours. What he hadn't accounted for was how his body had changed since his last expedition 6 months earlier. The 15 pounds, 6.8 kilograms, he'd gained during winter seemed insignificant when he volunteered to lead this adventure. By 11:30 a.m., the group had
That's a lot.
navigated through a series of increasingly
That's actually a
challenging
lot.
horizontal passages. The children's small frames allowed them to move with relative ease through tight spaces, where Richard had to exhale
Jax.
fully and contort his body to pass. Each successful navigation built a false sense of security. Their path led them to a particularly daunting obstacle, a vertical fissure, barely 10
Chat. Lizard. 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 I had to. There you go.
10 inches, 25 centimeters wide, but extending upward about 6 feet, 1.8 meters. This narrow crack connected two horizontal passages in the cave system. Through his flashlight beam, Richard could see that the passage beyond was slightly larger, just enough space for someone of his stature to crawl on hands and knees. Richard mentally referred to this as a room, though it was merely a slightly more accommodating tunnel. His memory from previous explorations told him this space continued onward to more impressive portions of the cave. The fissure appeared passable, and Richard recalled traversing it before. He made a critical decision. He would send the children through first while he supervised, then follow them into the horizontal passage beyond. Through the beam of his light, he could see this passage on the other side, tantalizingly close, yet separated by the narrow vertical slot of limestone. One by one, the young explorers turned sideways and slipped through the narrow opening, their small bodies compressing as they navigated the tightest sections. Some made noises of discomfort as cold stone pressed against their ribs and spines, but all 12 eventually emerged into the horizontal passage beyond. Their excited movements were visible through the crack as they crawled forward on hands and knees into the space Richard had remembered, their flashlight beams dancing along the low ceiling. Richard turned sideways and began his own entry into the crack. Immediately, the unforgiving stone gripped him more tightly than he remembered, his chest pressed against one wall, his spine against the other. Still, he pushed forward, sucking in his stomach and inching deeper into the fissure. Halfway through, progress stopped. The passage narrowed imperceptibly, but enough that his hips, wider than his chest by several crucial centimeters, wouldn't pass through. He attempted to retreat, but found himself caught at an angle that made backward movement impossible. The rock held him in a vice-like grip, compressing his chest and restricting his breathing.
Eat your art. No! Don't eat my art! No! I sit down, art teacher. What happened to your art? Chat ate it. Alright, see here. I should make shadow here as well.
Fine clarity. He was completely stuck, wedged in solid limestone, with 12 children now trapped beyond his reach in the horizontal passage. The initial terror was overwhelming. Richard's heart hammered against the confining stone as pure primal fear flooded his system. His breathing, already restricted by the pressure on his chest, came in short, panicked gasps. In that moment, the full weight of his responsibility crashed down upon him. 12 children, none older than 12, were now cut off from safety because of his miscalculation. He had led them into danger, and now his own body formed the barrier that prevented their escape. On the other side of the fissure, the children's excitement transformed instantly into horror. Their young faces, once excited, contorted with fear as they watched their guide become trapped in solid rock. Some froze in place, paralyzed by the sudden turn of events.
No, don't turn to Mark's plushie. No. Right.
Others began to cry
You're welcome.
silently. The older children, processing the situation more quickly, crawled toward the fissure to assess Richard's condition. Through the narrow opening, they could see him suspended in the vertical crack, unable to move forward or backward. The sight of their adult protector helplessly pinned between walls of limestone shattered their sense of security. If Richard couldn't save himself, who would save them? Outside the cave, Melissa Jones checked her watch. The group wasn't due to return until 3 p.m., more than 3 hours away. Unaware of the emergency unfolding beneath the earth, she sat in the warm spring sunshine, occasionally glancing toward the cave entrance, expecting nothing but an on-time return. Inside, the first half hour passed in a blur of desperate attempts. Each movement only seemed to wedge him more firmly in place. His hips, slightly wider than he remembered from his last visit, formed an immovable anchor in the narrowest part of the fissure. The children watched in growing dismay as their guide's struggles proved futile. They could only watch as Richard's movements grew weaker, his breath more labored. By the 1 hour mark, the immediate panic had given way to a more insidious danger. The temperature in the cave began its slow assault on their bodies. Without movement to generate warmth, they all started to shiver. Richard, although in a desperate situation, still gave out instructions. He told them all to huddle together in order to fight the coldness inside the cave. For Richard, the physical situation deteriorated rapidly. His suspended legs, dangling below the point where he was wedged, began to tingle as circulation was compromised. The first signs of compression syndrome, a potentially fatal condition caused by prolonged pressure cutting off blood flow to tissues, were setting in. At the 2 hour mark, conditions inside the cave worsened substantially. The limited air supply in the confined space began to change in composition, as 12 children and 1 trapped adult consumed oxygen and exhaled carbon dioxide. The first sign of this deterioration came as headaches developed among them. Then followed dizziness and nausea. The body's warning system.
Oh wait, I have a superpower. Control Z. That's the thing about digital art. You have superpowers that traditional artists don't have.
Shifting atmospheric chemistry. Outside, unaware of the life-threatening situation developing below ground, Melissa Jones continued her wait. The appointed return time was still hours away. No help would be summoned until the group was officially overdue. By the 3rd hour, several children had become dangerously still. The children's water supply, meant for a short recreational trip, was already half consumed. Dehydration would soon compound the effects of the cold exposure, accelerating the drop in body temperature. 2 of the youngest had fallen asleep, despite the older children's efforts to keep them awake. This surrender to sleep was not benign rest, but a dangerous symptom of advancing hypothermia. At 3 p.m., the appointed return time passed with no sign of the group. Melissa Jones, now concerned, alerted park rangers about the overdue of the expedition. The search began, but precious hours had already elapsed. Hours during which the trapped adventurers' conditions had deteriorated toward criticality. When rescuers finally located the group, they were in shock. Richard wedged tightly, almost out of strength, in the narrow vertical fissure between 2 horizontal passages. 12 kids, trapped beyond him with no way of reaching them, or even giving them supplies before getting Richard out of the way.
That is true. Unfortunately, Twitter Mob says otherwise. So there are benefits and there are setbacks. a plus for digital art is based for me is I don't have to spend exorbitant amounts of money on art supplies anymore. The only thing I may have to spend money on are my pen nibs. But luckily I'm not forced to change my pen nib yet. This tablet is all just well, from when I bought it, it is 3 years old now. But like in terms of use, only like I say just under a year. Is it? No. Yeah, half a year, basically.
The rescuers' initial attempts to free Richard proved disastrously ineffective. Park rangers and local firefighters without specialized cave rescue training attacked the stone with sledgehammers and chisels, attempting to break away enough rock to free him. The violent impact sent shockwaves through the limestone, threatening to destabilize the very fissure holding Richard. One ranger suffered a broken hand from a missed hammer strike, highlighting the dangers of improvised techniques in the confined space. 2 hours into the rescue attempt, the Washington County Search and Rescue Team arrived with proper cave rescue training.
Here.
They immediately recognized the futility of trying to alter
That
the
is true.
and instead
At least you can't crash and lag. File. See. There you go. But this unplugs your Wi-Fi router. No, I can still draw though. Okay, let's see here.
on Richard himself.
All right.
They determined that cutting away his restricting clothing and shifting his body upward slightly might allow him to pass through a marginally wider section of the fissure. Using tubular webbing, strong flat nylon straps used in climbing and rescue operations, they fashioned slings that could be worked under Richard's arms. With careful coordination, they lifted him just inches higher in the crack, where the opening was slightly wider. Simultaneously, they cut away his blue jeans, removing the extra bulk that contributed.
I'm kind of struggling between two art styles. Right now, I'm trying to figure out which art style works better for me. Right now, my art's gonna continue to look ugly until I somehow improve it correctly.
To his entrapment. After 5 hours wedged between unyielding stone, Richard was finally extracted. The return of blood flow to his compressed tissues brought excruciating pain, like thousands of needles stabbing simultaneously into every cell. While Richard was carried out of the cave, the rescuers rushed towards the children and checked their condition. They needed immediate medical care, so one by one, they were taken out of the fissure, starting with those most in need of medical assistance. The experienced cave rescue team worked methodically, carrying each child through the tight passage that had trapped Richard until all 12 were out. Outside the cave, emergency medical personnel immediately treated the young explorers for hypothermia. 2 of them, the youngest ones, were immediately rushed to the hospital. Though visibly shaken by their ordeal, most of the children responded well to the initial treatment, and subsequently all of them were transported to the local hospital for thorough examination, where doctors confirmed no lasting physical damage had occurred. Though able to leave the cave under his own power, more from adrenaline than physical capability, the ordeal left Richard with lasting physical and psychological damage. For the children, the nightmare of being trapped beyond reach of help, watching their only guide and protector suspended helplessly in stone, would manifest in dreams for years to come. The incident report later emphasized that compression syndrome, hypothermia, dehydration, and oxygen deprivation had nearly claimed 13 lives that day. It also highlighted a crucial lesson.
Yeah.
Emergency personnel without specific cave rescue training often underestimate the complexity of extraction from confined spaces and delay calling for specialized help. A potentially fatal mistake measured in minutes of oxygen, degrees of body temperature, and millimeters of rock. Devil's Den had nearly added 13 names to its dark history, not through malevolence, but through the simple, implacable physics of stone and flesh, and the overconfidence of a young man who didn't realize how little margin for error exists hundreds of feet below the Earth's surface, where the darkness is absolute and the stone has waited millions of years for human folly. This next story takes place underneath the surface, deep in the waters, where a cave diving expedition was meant to be doomed from the get-go. On February 26, 2002, Travis Jenkins and Dale Fisher arrived at Cove Mine with standard open water diving equipment and minimal additional gear, each carrying just a single light source.
That is true. That is true. Traditional art is always doing one layer challenges. I mean, technically, I still do a one layer challenge. Like, I'm still in the habit of doing one layer challenge. Like, most of the layers here are just for colors. On bottom here, these are the only 3 layers. That's the actual drawing itself. Those are the only 3 layers that's the actual drawing itself. While everything else is colors. Alright, see here. Here we go. Yeah.
Diving masks, wetsuits, and standard scuba tanks. Neither possess certification or formal training in cave or cavern diving. A highly specialized discipline with strict protocols and redundancy requirements developed specifically for the unique and unforgiving hazards of overhead environments where direct access to the surface is blocked. The absence of backup air supplies, redundant lighting systems, and cave-specific navigational tools would later be identified as critical factors in the tragedy that unfolded. Their regular open water training, while sufficient for lakes and oceans with unobstructed access to the surface, had not prepared them for the complex three-dimensional environment they were about to enter. The abandoned marble mine presented a deceptive environment that lured the divers into a false sense of security. Its large cathedral-like open chamber,
Traditional and digital art
water, might have
has their own benefits, has their own pros and cons. With traditional art, you own your art, and there's no way to delete, and there's no way for it to delete your art other than tearing it apart. For digital art, we do that. We save backups. We do like basically we can't accidentally delete our art. However, the way to combat it is we make backups on separate drives. Like me, I save on one drive on one of my drives. I make it back up on a separate drive, and then make it back up on my thumb drive, and then make it back up for a cloud drive. I make backups, so make sure there's no way to delete my art. Fire. Fire! Hold on. That also reminds me. The wizard raises staff and dance. The party hasn't stopped, but he can't. He's gonna turn this room into a fireball of doom. The wizard casts fireball. Don't care if it hit you all. That reminds me of that. It's funny how one word just reminds me of an entire song.
Open water diving conditions, but beneath the surface lurked a treacherous network of flooded tunnels, narrow passages, and confusing side chambers. An overhead environment that demands specialized training, redundant equipment configurations, meticulous planning, and strict adherence to safety protocols developed over decades of hard-won experience in the cave diving community. The site's history as a marble extraction operation had left behind a complex labyrinth of human-made passages that intersected with natural karst formations, creating a particularly disorienting underwater maze.
One of my friends told me, oh my goodness. You really did? You really did the ooh? You did the ooh? Sometimes it's not about the ooh or the oh or the ada. Sometimes it's about the You're doing great today. I'm proud of you. Keep pushing. Keep fighting. You got this. Okay. So I believe one can look at art. The art is officially complete. All the shading and whatnot. Hold on. Oh no, not that. Not that. There you go. Proper shading. It is officially complete. Nothing gets past an artist's eye. Anywho, ooh. Oh, fuck. That crack in half. I believe this also calls or just what? What is it? Got the hold on. You're doing great today, sweetie. I'm proud of you. I give you some head pats. Here you go. You're a good little creature, aren't you? Keep doing what you're doing. I'm proud of you. Are you a beginner? How long again? 15, 20. I've been a beginner for 7 years. Beginner for 7. Well, technically, I started drawing like stick figures and whatnot since I was 3 years old. Doodles throughout my childhood, and took 2 art classes at my school. And I started taking art seriously in 2018. I've been focusing on trying to improve my art. Unfortunately, I had to take like a 2-year gap. I can only draw. Yeah, it's 2013 for me. But yeah, I do whatever I can to keep up with my art and keep drawing because gotta use it or lose it, basically. All right, there you go. There you go. It will. It will. Hold on. Chat. I'd say this art's complete, so I'm gonna post it shortly. We also, oh yeah, Prover. We also have a Discord linked in a chat in the channel description. In the channel itself. Ew, 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 ew. Hannah! Ew, 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 ew. Oh my goodness. It already developed into chaos. Chaos! More chaos! But yeah, chat, I have a question. Since our is done, do you want to take an hour, just take an extra hour for just watching YouTube videos? You want me to do YouTube reactions? I said, yay, thank you for subscribing! That means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you. I'm bowing. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that I just thought of a joke. I just thought of a joke. Thank you for subbing. You made me your top now. I'm sorry. Sorry. Oh, Mike. I'm sorry. You're welcome. Anywho, I'll probably take an extra hour to watch some YouTube videos. Ricky and reactions. Yeah, reaction videos. Let me get everything set up real quick and we'll get going. Alright, put these. Alright. Oh, come on. Alright. Let me get everything set up real quick, alright? Matinee!
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me move. You can make me move. Can make me move. You can make me move. Can make me. So alive, make it last forever. Stop in time, yeah, I'm surrendering. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me move. You can make me move. Can make me move. Can make me move. You can make me move. Can make me.
What the fuck? Oh my fucking god. Hold on, chat. What the fuck is going on? Okay. Oh my fucking properties. There we go, finally. Oh yeah, sometimes I fucking hate OBS. But hey. Alright, there we go. Alright. Unfortunately, I don't know what's going on with my tablet now. Hold on real quick. Tablet's glitching out.
抜いても平気だよ。ちゃんとつながったよ。
Yeah, I can't fix my tablet right now unless if I put my PC to sleep real quick. I'm not gonna do that right now. I'm just gonna deal with it for now. Anywho, there we go. Alright, bye. Bye, Hannah. Bye-bye. Welcome back, Provo. I just starting our YT reactions now. Alright. Here we go.
All right, everybody. Today we're going to be looking for some YouTube scam ads. We're ads. Oh my god, bro! I'm gonna try some clay making.
Hey,
All right,
yo.
where are the ads?
Alright, we gotta find something else. Ooh. Ooh.
So I was playing some of the only tracks worth playing in Mario Kart Wii, and when I got to Peach Gardens, I noticed, get to it, drive faster. I noticed this. What the hell is this? None of the other Mario Kart DS tracks in Mario Kart Wii have any sort of changes. They're just kind of more higher quality to fit the Wii standard. But like this is unacceptable. And we're going to add it to Mario Kart DS. We're going to backport
This
DS
ramp.
Peach Gardens to Mario Kart DS, except not really backport because I'm not using any of the original model. We need Blender. Thankfully, I have all the Mario Kart DS tracks as these files, so I can just like yoink them. If we now go model, we can see here is where the things should be. Now, I mean, I didn't really look at where they should be. Maybe we should do
Ooh.
that. The lighting's not even the same on either one of them. See here, big green thing. Here, tiny. God, Mario Kart Wii.
Lol.
So now we have a cube. We kind of want to make
Such a piano tiles.
wider. And then what's an appropriate angle?
Oh, cool.
That's actually way too big. Oh, I just noticed another.
Nah,
I'm
I will
guessing
not.
None of these textures look like
I will not be searching out piano tiles because I don't want to get copyrighted.
this. I mean, what are you? That top texture definitely doesn't exist, and this side texture? Maybe we can get away with all one. Moments that make you go, Actually, if I just go UV project from view. Actually, no, set it to this way. Wait. I just realized in Mario Kart Wii, that's just flat at the end. This should probably also be, yeah, it's way easier to deal with. Why did I do that at the start? I really like overcomplicating things. Nice. We now have rump.
Rump.
There is like the grass edge. I don't care about that. Now, I don't really have a texture for that top texture. So, oh, you are that texture. Okay. How big are you? 512 by 64. Oh, that's too big. So you're becoming 16. A PG. For parental guidance. Then we add our ramp.pga. Nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15 times. Ah, just like the Mario Kart Wii model. So now we got ourselves
Nice.
this thing. Now we select it. They like the exact same.
Yeah,
angles.
I don't want to get copyrighted, sorry. Unfortunately, YouTube is way more strict with copyright. Way more strict, so that's why I am careful.
So you're slightly more parallel. This course also that.
Sorry about the background noise. what I want to do is I haven't searched up style theory yet. Ooh.
They are going to fine me $250,000. Excuse me, what?
Yeah, the everyone is stealing from Poplex saga just got even crazier. Hello internet, welcome to Style Theory, the show that's ready to pop on these big bad brands. And yes, if my voice sounds weird, it's because I'm sick, but not too sick to talk about this sick situation. Once again, someone is trying to take advantage of a small independent brand known as
Welcome to the Discord. Welcome to the Discord. I didn't remember the welcome to the underground. Welcome to the underground. Alright.
Poplex. This is the athleisure brand that you have likely seen come across your Instagram or TikTok feeds at some point. And it's owned by friend of the channel and soon-to-be two-time Creators in Fashion runway participant, Cassie Ho, aka 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙧𝙖𝙩. But despite that, we do try to remain very unbiased on the channel
girl's
whenever
pretty.
we cover a topic. However, since this is the third time that we are covering this copyright saga, I do feel like I just have to kind of come out and say this. This girl cannot catch a break. First, she had the design of her patented pirouette skirt stolen by Shein not once, but twice.
Then, most recently, she learned that a company called 𝙂𝙤 has been selling another suspiciously similar skirt at multiple brick-and-mortar stores.
One where I found out that Nordstrom Rack was selling a straight-up dupe of my patented pirouette skirt, also being sold at TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and some store called Beals.
I think it's actually pronounced Bells? But you know what? Not the point here. Back to the legal stuff. By the end of our last episode, Cassie and Nordstrom were at a bit of a crossroads.
Yeah.
Cassie had extended an olive branch saying, hey, just stop selling the dupe, sell my product instead, and we can just let bygones be bygones. To which Nordstrom totally said yes. Everyone made a bunch of money. It was happily ever after. Just kidding. Hey Siri, play This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things by Taylor Swift. Yeah, instead of meeting in the middle, Cassie has basically been going through a legal pinball machine, bouncing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between all involved parties. And once she did get a response, it was pretty much the worst response that she could have gotten.
Get this NDA. It says that I am not allowed to talk about this story, and that if I do post, that they are going to fine me.
No. Also, really? A company threatening a cease and desist and lawsuit to cover their own asses? You know, if they threaten a lawsuit and they know they're in the wrong, they're just trying to do everything to silence people. That's why I hate fucking corpos.
$250,000.
I have to admit, that was a plot twist I did not expect. Now, there's a lot more to the story, and it's all putting Cassie, her company, and her brand in a very complicated spot. 𝙂𝙤 is basically trying to pull an Ursula and get Cassie to sign away her voice. But should she? I mean, is 𝙂𝙤 even legally able to do this? And is there anything that Cassie can do to end this once and for all? Or is
Yeah, that has already been thrown out. And Roblox tried to do an appeal, and the government said, we're gonna start fining you if you keep on threatening consumer rights. And that's when Discord backed off. We haven't heard anything in a while for Discord.
she doomed to drown in
I only know about this because I went through the published lawsuit cease and desist documentation. Well, there was going to be a lawsuit, but the government threw it out.
red tape forever. Let's break this whole thing down and find out if maybe, just maybe, there is actually a light at the end of this copyright tunnel. The first thing that we need to do is figure out how we went from $0 to $250,000 in the first place. Before posting her first video and a series of Instagram stories discussing the situation, Cassie had been pretty radio silent on the whole thing, despite all the tags and questions from fans who were finding these pirouette skirt dupes in stores.
You guys also showed me receipts of that exact Gotex dupe.
During that time, she and her company were working to find a resolution that wouldn't end up in a huge lawsuit. But instead, she says she ended up just being bounced around for months.
And essentially, it's been a game of hot potato where I'm the potato being tossed around from lawyer to lawyer, corporation to corporation, between the retailer, the vendor, and...
Yeah, they're trying to avoid any accountability because they know they're in the wrong. Originally, I was initiated as yeah, I've been watching Food Theory and Style Theory for the longest time. More than I watched game theory and film theory, surprisingly.
This burger...
No, I don't want to get copyrighted.
This burger is exactly...
If you didn't know, 9cat is actually copyrighted.
1 pound. If I ate it right now, would I suddenly weigh 1 pound heavier? One of the greatest scientific minds on all of the internet and Ludwig have racked their brains around this very question. And so, as the food theorist, I see no person better suited to tackle this delicious debate, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Hello, Internet!
Welcome to Food Theory,
the show that's always ready for some internet beef. Except I'm not talking about your usual YouTuber drama. I'm talking about real, 100% genuine Angus beef. You see, the other day I was minding my business, scrolling through YouTube, when I stumbled upon this video put out by Ludwig from Video Games.
Me and Cutie got into a big argument yesterday. I said that if you eat a 1 pound steak, you gain 1 pound. Not permanently, but like immediately after eating the steak. And she said, no, you would not go up a pound. Some of it would be lost. And I'm like, what does that mean?
What it means is we have ourselves a good old-fashioned food debate. Naturally, as a streamer, Ludwig tried hashing out this debate on stream with his chat. But it's Twitch chat, so it went about as well as you'd imagine.
Brother, you're the dumbest in the chat. Congratulations. I see people making arguments, and I think they're putting their best foot forward. You got two left feet on you, man.
But there was hope. This is the internet after all. Whenever you have a slightly silly science
It is the
question,
internet.
there's one person you can call on to set the record straight. Me! But Ludwig didn't have my number, so he called YouTube royalty and certified TikTok science geek Hank Green. I mean, he has a whole show where people just ask him questions. What could go wrong?
Hello.
Hank, I'm live. I have a question.
Okay, what's your question?
I got into an argument with my girlfriend last night.
Okay.
Because I did a fast food challenge where I had to eat a lot of fast food and I had gained weight. And she said it doesn't work like that. I posed a hypothetical. I said, if I eat a 1 pound burger, right after eating the burger, I'm 1 pound heavier.
And in typical Hank Green fashion, his answer was both scientific and, dare I say, digestible. Blech. Hank even managed to sneak in a quick existential question in there to really mess with Ludwig's head.
I always maintain that the entire digestive system is just a tube of outside that runs through the inside. And you don't get to count that until it gets absorbed by the body.
What the The digestive system is a tube that is inside the body that lives outside the body. What did he say?
And here's where the beef really starts cooking. You see, a few weeks after Ludwig put out his video, Hank put out a video of his own.
Classic Hank giving people existential crisis.
Titled Ludwig Completely Misunderstood Me, where he tried to clarify his stance on the 1 pound burger debate and add more scientific.
We gotta watch that. We gotta watch that. Oh, Ludwig. Can you not put React? Mother. Yeah.
I got a phone call from
There we go.
Ludwig from video games, and I want to go through how I would have handled that if
Yeah.
I had a little bit more time to prepare. So let's watch the video.
I did a fast food challenge where I had to eat a lot of fast food and I had gained weight. And she said it doesn't work like that. Anyway, I pose a hypothetical. I
You make the decision, that's one. What do you mean by that?
said if I eat a 1 pound burger, right after eating the burger, I'm 1 pound heavier.
So this has been sort of litigated by the internet in the form of if I eat 1% of my body weight in nachos. So I'm 220. If I eat 2.2 pounds of nachos, which is not hard, I could easily pull that off. Am I 1% nacho? Which eventually led to a set of discussions that has lodged my answer that I'm about to give Ludwig into my head. So let's watch that.
And she said, no. Some of it is lost and in the air.
Okay. I don't know where some of it is lost and in the air might have come from. Oh my gosh. This is Hank from the future. And I figured it out. Cutie, Ludwig's girlfriend, is right. What she was talking about, I think, is that when you cook a 1 pound burger, you do not end up with 1 pound of burger. Because some of that did get lost and is in the air. So there's water that's in there that evaporates. There's chemical reactions that happen. Some of that gets into the air. Some of it's left on the surface of the cooktop. So depending on the kind of burger, you could have 15 to 30% of that weight lost. So if you're eating a 1 pound burger that was 1 pound of meat, then that could be as little as like 70% of a pound. Whatever that is. If we were metric, I'd be able to tell you, but I can't because we're not. So I think that's where this is coming from. And now it'll all make more sense as we go through the rest of the video. All right, well, that's what I get for thinking I'm just going to run out here and post it real quick on a Saturday. I'm watching the final cut and being like, wait a second. There, it all makes sense now. But let's continue to watch the video and see if I need to do any more surprises from me. An important thing, there's a bunch of stuff in food that isn't food. We know this. There's a lot of water in food, so that's not food. That's water. That's what you drink. That's not what you eat. You don't get calories from water. It's important, but it's not food. There's also air in food, like imagine that fluffy bun of the burger. And there's indigestible fibers in food, though probably not a ton in fast food. And as for air, when we think about losing weight, this is where the weight goes, and that's wild. So of course we lose weight by losing water, by peeing and sweating and stuff. And we lose weight by pooping. But actually, like if you're talking about losing the fat in your body, which is mostly what we mean when we say losing weight, but also, you know, the muscles, that can also be part of losing weight. Not ideally, but it usually is. What's happening is those tissues are being broken down and used for energy. And where that mass actually goes is very strange and surprising. It is exhaled in your breath, which is why when you work out a lot, you breathe more because you're burning more energy. You need to take more oxygen in and you need to breathe more carbon dioxide out. And that carbon in the carbon dioxide is part of the mass. Now, also part of the mass is water. So carbohydrates are carbon and hydrates. Hydrated carbon. Don't think of them like they're carbon. Bye bye. They're carbon that has done chemistry with water.
Hope you had fun first on the stream. See you soon.
To turn into a totally different thing that is carbs. But also fats are like this. And you pretty much end up with carbon dioxide and water. Proteins are a little different. You get carbon dioxide and water and ammonia. You have to get that nitrogen out somewhere, which is why you pee out urea. So you also pee out some of the chemicals when you break down protein. Now you know all of that. So it comes out in your pee, comes out in your sweat, it comes out in your poop. You lose mass because like you actually create stuff like the stuff in red blood cells. That stuff will break down and you actually, that I think ends up in your colon. Some of it. Anyway, it comes out all the places you would think. But a lot of it comes out in your breath, which is wild. And that isn't just the water that's evaporating, it's the carbon in the carbon
Sorry about the background noise.
One part of carbon.
I don't know why people fucking with the motherfucking loud ass exhaust pipes. What makes you fucking think that's a good idea? Especially in the middle of the fucking night. What the fuck? And sometimes it's only around 2040 for me. Sometimes like at midnight or even like 3 in the fucking morning, I hear people racing down the street. The loudest, was it with their loudest exhaust pipes. It's just like, what the fuck? Oh my fucking god! Why the fuck would you? Oh, it pisses me the fuck off. It really does.
Carbohydrates. But this is minuscule and not affected on like the micro scale. It is only over the like many breaths that you take in a day and a year that it is a significant amount of mass that's
Some of it is lost in the air right after you eat it?
Yes. And I'm saying I'm 1 pound heavier. And if I were to weigh myself on a scale, it'd be 1 more pound because we have to keep the pound.
Yeah. I mean, you're always losing a little tiny bit of mass every time you take a breath.
So that's what I mean when I say that you always lose a little bit of mass every time you take a breath, which is wild. It's true. It's both water that comes out and carbon dioxide.
So there is that, but that happens whether or not you've eaten a burger. And then the real question is whether that burger is part of you if it's just inside of your stomach, or if the stomach is the outside of you.
Now, this is where people had some debates with me. And look, I'm fine to have the debate. There are basically 2 versions of this. So say that there's a pot and you put water in the pot. The water is in the pot. You wouldn't say that the water isn't in the pot. It's not like sitting on top of the pot. It's in the pot. And so if there's a burger inside of me, then it's inside of me. It's not like sitting on my cells. It's encapsulated by the unit of the body that I imagine is me. And this makes sense. But also, there is a tunnel through a mountain. And if you are in the tunnel, you're kind of in the mountain, but you're kind of in the tunnel. And that's how I imagine the body. And so it makes total sense to me that you could imagine this either way. And it doesn't matter which way you imagine it. But I will say that the cells of our skin are called epithelial cells. And the entire digestive tract is lined with epithelial cells. Embryonically, the same layer when you're developing in a womb, the same layer of like the germline cells that becomes your skin also becomes the tube. The very first thing that an embryo does, like a human embryo, is it forms a little donut, forms a little hole. The blastocyst has a little hole in it, and that hole is the digestive system. That's the thing that it becomes. And so it's easy to argue that there is a tube of outside that runs through your inside, and that is your digestive system. It is also selectively permeable. Not everything you put in your mouth gets absorbed into the body. And like the skin is also selectively permeable. The tube is also filled with stuff that isn't me, definitely genetically. Like all of the microbiome of the gut is not me. It's other organisms living inside of me, and they're not in my body. Now there are also microorganisms that live in my body, but these ones don't, and that's the vast majority of the cells of the microbiome are inside of the digestive system, and they're outside of the body. Like they're not in me. They're not in my blood. They're not pumping around. They affect that stuff, but they're not inside of it. It's selectively permeable. It is not allowing them to cross into the body. If that happened, it would be a problem.
Wait,
But
what?
you will weigh it when you weigh it.
Ludwig wasn't immediately excited about this idea, which I love.
I always maintain that the entire digestive system is just a tube of outside that runs through the inside. And you don't get to count that until it gets absorbed by the body.
It's a tube on the outside. So you're saying it's the equivalent of holding the burger in my hand.
I love its equivalent of holding the burger in my hands. This is why you're not 2% nacho, because you're 0% nacho. What you are is the cells of your body working together to make you happen. And the food in your stomach is not yet that. It's going to be turned into that. It's going to be turned into the stuff that is actually constructs those cells and powers them. But if it's not that, then it's not. I'm not nachos. I'm never any percent nacho. I am only ever the cells that are using the nachos for parts and for energy.
If I were to weigh myself a burger in my hand, I'd be a pound heavier. But that doesn't count.
Oh, that's
it's
interesting.
in the process of being digested, and until it's digested, it's not part of my body.
That's a good way of putting it.
Oh my god.
Honestly, that's a good way of putting it for the digestive system, and also very interesting viewpoint. I personally, from my perspective, before I watched this, it would, for me, it was like, okay, I'm digesting. Right now, food is in my stomach. It's food. I'm digesting the food. It'll soon be turned into all kinds of protein and nutrients that my body will consume, and then eventually become a part of me.
So she's right?
So then Ludwig said, oh my god, so she's right. And I did have to hit them with this.
No.
So I slept on the couch for nothing?
You're both wrong.
Or they're both right, you know? This isn't science. This
It
is
is
semantics. And I love
semantics.
semantics because it gives us a chance to talk about science. And that's what I just did. But importantly, again, it is true that the mass of the burger itself, a significant amount is lost during cooking. So if you eat a quarter-pound burger, you're not eating a quarter-pound of burger, but then you're also eating like the cheese and tomatoes and bun and stuff on top of that, which is probably going to bring it back up to over a pound of food. So I think if he's talking about the fact that burgers lose mass as they get cooked, in that case, yes, it is lost and in the air or on the cooktop. And in that case, she is correct. I used semantics, like a silly semantic conversation to talk about anatomy and physiology, which I think is cool. And otherwise, you probably wouldn't have listened to. So after Littlewig hangs up, this is what he says.
The digestive system is a tube that is inside the body that lives outside the body. What did he fucking say?
I said, it's a tube of outside that runs through the inside. You're a donut. A weird donut.
A weird donut.
You did not get gaslit. You just got taught. That's different.
It's just a hole. So you're telling me I call Hank Green and he said you're nothing but a hole.
That's not what I said. You're everything but the hole, Ludwig. This is what you took from that? I'm nothing but a hole. No, you're all of the parts except the hole. You just have a hole that's a hole of outside. It's epithelial cells and it's selectively permeable and it formed from the same germ cells as the...
The way he said it was such mindfuckery. It was funny.
The skin, embryonically. And I have a meeting I have to go to. That's what that noise was for. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Depth to his answer. Classic Hank stuff. But ironically, in this video entitled Ludwig Completely Misunderstood Me, it was Hank who ended up misunderstanding Ludwig. And Hank even said some stuff in his video that wasn't true. Gasp! I know! Honestly, this debate between Hank and Ludwig sparked so many interesting questions, not only about food, but anatomy and physiology, embryonic development, and even philosophical thinkers like, what is me? I just had to dive in. So join me in my kitchen.
Let's go.
Have a seat. Stay a while. I've been munching down on science.
No, he should. He missed an opportunity. Instead of saying dive in, let's dig in.
Like it was a 1 pound burger. And now I'm stepping on the scale with the likes of Hank Green to answer 3 big food questions. And let's just say, by the end of today's episode, you'll never look at food or your body the same way ever again. Kicking off our food investigation, I see no better place to start than the question that sparked this
food investigation. I see. I would have said food stigation.
Entire debate in the first place. If I eat a 1 pound burger, do I actually weigh 1 pound more? Now, for this debate, it doesn't really matter if we're talking about a burger, a steak, or just a tub of lard. All we need to figure out is if we eat something, do we immediately gain its weight as our own? Let's hear both sides of the argument between Ludwig and 𝑄T Cinderella one more time.
I said that if you eat a 1 pound steak, you gain 1 pound. Not permanently, but like immediately after eating the steak. And she said, no, you would not go up a pound. Some of it would be lost. And I'd be like, lost where? And she'd be like, in the air.
Now, at first glance, this question seems kind of silly. If I stand on a scale and weigh 185 pounds and I pick up a 1 pound burger, the scale is obviously gonna go up by 1 pound. And therefore, it shouldn't matter whether I then funnel that burger into my mouth or down my gullet. The scale should still stay the same. But there are a few tidbits here and there that could actually lend support to 𝑄T's side of the argument. One of which Hank brings up in his call with Ludwig.
And if I were to weigh myself on a scale, it'd be 1 more pound because we have to keep the pound.
Yeah, I mean, you're always losing a little tiny bit of mass every time you take a breath.
Now, you might be thinking, breath? That measly little is nothing. Surely that doesn't make any sort of difference when it comes to my weight. Well, don't be so sure. Hank, take it away.
Anorexic nervoso, start hyperventilating. Sorry.
And as for air, when we think about losing weight, this is where the weight goes, and that's wild. So of course we lose weight by losing water, by peeing and sweating and stuff, and we lose weight by pooping. But actually, like if you're talking about losing the fat in your body, which is mostly what we mean when we say losing weight, what's happening is those tissues are being broken down and used for energy, and where that mass actually goes is very strange and surprising. It is exhaled in your breath.
See, what he's saying here is that when we burn fat, the actual weight that's leaving our body doesn't exit exit through the butt, but mostly out of our mouths. Gross. Pero like, how does this happen? Hank actually has a pretty decent explanation in his video, but since I'm in the presence of one of the goats, I want to try my hand at flexing my own science communicator muscles. As humans, there are 3 different types of molecules we consume that we can later burn to get energy: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Now, our bodies really don't like breaking down protein for energy, so we'll set that aside. But whenever we do need that little burst of energy, our bodies will break down either the carbs from this morning's bowl of cereal or the fat from last night's Chipotle run. That carbohydrate or fat will react with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, water, and energy, which we go on to use to run that marathon or get up off the couch to leave. But once that energy is made, that heavy CO2 and water has to go somewhere. The water leaves mostly via our sweat and pee, but the CO2 is exhaled through the lungs, and with it, all that mass. Bada bing, bada boom, you've lost weight. And not an insignificant amount either. For every 10 pounds of fat you burn, around 84% of that is lost via CO2 that you breathe out. The rest is water. In fact, every time you breathe out, you release around 33 milligrams of CO2. That may not sound like a lot, but over the course of a day, that's around 1.25 pounds of CO2 you're releasing back into the air. And that's why, as Ludwig reminded us,
if you weigh yourself in the morning, you are lighter. You are at your lightest in the morning.
While we sleep, we don't add more weight onto our body in the form of food, but we do breathe a lot. And so, over the course of the night, you breathe out a bunch of CO2 and you get lighter. And that circles us back nicely to our burger battle between Lud and QT. Because while a 1-pound burger should increase your mass by 1 pound after you eat it, the amount of weight you'll lose in the form of CO2 over the few seconds or few minutes it would take to actually eat the burger is small, but not zero. Although, to be fair, none of that weight loss would actually come from the burger itself, just from the weight you're constantly losing throughout the day. So depending on how you look at it, you could easily argue that both Lud and QT are right in their own ways. Although Hank might have an alternative explanation.
And she said, no. Some of it is lost and in the air.
Okay, I don't know where some of it is lost and in the air might have come from. Oh my gosh, this is Hank from the future, and I figured it out. What she was talking about, I think, is that when you cook a 1-pound burger, you do not end up with 1 pounds of burger.
No, I definitely think that's not what she meant. I mean, sure, some of that yummy, delicious fat and juice does cook out of your burger, around 1/3 to 1/4 pound according to the USDA, but that's not really part of this little thought experiment. No, see, in this thought experiment, the idea is that you eat a burger that has the final weight of 1 pound. QT is saying that our 1-pound burger, toppings and all, will lose some mass in the air, which, if we're getting really technical, might be true. I mean, at like the atomic level, some of those delicious burger molecules will manage to float off that yummy treat and into our nose. But good luck finding an affordable scale that measures to like 25 decimal places. And so yes, if I snapped my fingers and transported a 1-pound burger to my tum-tum, I'd gain a pound. But in the real world, technically there are tiny, almost imperceptible amounts of mass that end up floating away from both me and my meal, so it's not perfect. Therefore, QT and Lud were both right and wrong. Bravo, Santi, I thought to myself. You solved another online food debate. Time to go remove some of this mass, if you catch my drift. That was until Hank up and went and said this.
The real question is whether that burger is part of you if it's just inside of your stomach, or if the stomach is the outside of you.
Wait, what?
I always maintain that the entire digestive system is just a tube of outside that runs through the inside. And you don't get to count that until it gets absorbed by the body.
Oh, Hank, why do you do this to me? Dumbest title card we've had to put in a video so far, hands down. Hank sure has thrown us a bit of a curveball, hasn't he? It's fine.
Exactly.
So Hank claims that our digestive system, from mouth to anus, is just a tube of outside that runs through the inside of me, thus making us some sort of oddly shaped flesh donut. Have fun with that visual.
It's just a tube of outside that runs through the inside.
So you're saying it's the equivalent of holding the burger in my hand. If I were to weigh myself with a burger in my hand, I'd be a pound heavier.
Yeah.
But that doesn't count because it's in the process of being digested, and until it's digested, it's not part of my body.
I'm gonna keep it real. The whole outside-inside thing feels like one of those oversimplified to the point of being wrong things. But this is Hank Green we're talking about, Mr. Science Man. Let's see how he explains himself in the video.
There are basically 2 versions of this. So say say that there's a pot and you put water in the pot, the water is in the pot. It's not like sitting on top of the pot, it's in the pot. And so if there's a burger inside of me, then it's inside of me. But also, there is a tunnel through a mountain, and if you are in the tunnel, you're kind of in the mountain, but you're kind of in the tunnel. And that's how I imagine the body. And so it makes total sense to me that you could imagine this either way.
Alright, it's more semantics, not so much hard science. Oh, my bad, Hank.
Welcome back.
And it doesn't matter which way you imagine it, but I will say that the cells of our skin are called epithelial cells, and the entire digestive tract is lined with epithelial cells. Embryonically, the same layer when you're developing in a womb, the same layer of like the germline
Okay, that's
cells
actually
that becomes your
interesting.
skin also becomes the tube.
Yeesh.
I think Hank Green might
No.
be wrong here. And I don't mean like,
Don't eat the live stream, no.
OMG, he's so wrong with a fraud, let's ratio his ass. I mean like, actually kind of wrong that only someone like, well, Hank Green could appreciate. So Hank, if you're watching, love you, but also debunking time. Let's start.
Debunking time.
It is true that cells that make up our skin and line the inside of our
I want Hank Green to react to Santi's video.
digestive tract are all called epithelial cells. Epithelial cells are also
Yum.
one of the 4 major types of body tissues, along with connective, muscle, and nervous tissue. But just because our skin and stomach cells are all called epithelial cells doesn't mean they originate from the same place. And to explain that, I have to return to the one place I thought I'd never go back to. My pre-med days. Lightning strikes, ka-chow! Specifically, we're diving into embryology. That's the study of embryos, which, I guess I need to start at the beginning. You see, when a mommy and a daddy love each other very much, that's when the sperm and the egg fuse together
No,
to
don't
form
make
one
hair.
new cell. That one cell divides into 2, and so on until you get a big ball of cells that don't know whether they're going to become skin cells, liver cells, or brain cells. Around 3 weeks after conception, that big ball of cells goes through a process known as gastrulation. During gastrulation, the cells start to organize themselves into different layers called germ layers. Those are the ones that Hank is talking about when he says
The same layer of like the germline cells that becomes your skin also becomes the tube.
the only problem is the same layer of germline cells that becomes your skin does not also become the tube. Again, I don't want to bury you in the minutia of embryology. Nobody needs that. But
No,
our
don't
ball
eat
of
my
cells
skin.
starts to reorganize itself
No,
into
I
3
need it.
distinct layers.
No.
The ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. Each of these layers goes on to form different parts of the body. For example, the ectoderm will go on to form things like your tooth enamel or your nervous system, or most importantly to us, the outer layer of your skin. Meanwhile, the endoderm goes on to form several organs, and you guessed it, the lining of your digestive tract. See where I'm going with this? Your skin and your stomach lining are derived from completely different layers. Therefore, your digestive tract is not part of your outsides, and we can rest easy knowing that my 1 pound is firmly on my inside. Well, look, it's not really that simple, because of course it's not. Let's allow him.
I've been learning to speak Japanese. Unfortunately, at some point I stopped, but I still retain the beginner lessons though.
Hank to finish his point.
The very first thing that an embryo does, it forms a little donut, forms a little hole, and that hole is the digestive system.
During gastrulation, the process where we make the 3 germ layers, that little ball of cells starts to pinch in on itself and form what will become the digestive system. You know, the tube. But when you...
Oh. Oh no. Goodbye.
actually watch the cells pinch in on themselves, it sure looks like the inside started as...
I said I retained the beginner lessons. I'm not sufficient in speaking Japanese. I'm not sufficient in reading Japanese. Speaking Japanese, I'm a beginner to intermediate. As for reading Japanese, I'm still a beginner.
outside, so who really cares? I mean, the cells sure don't care whether we call them ectoderm or inside or tum-tum. So if you want to say that your digestive system is actually your outsides, have at it, Hoss. You're wrong, but you do you. Wow, that was a lot.
Proverb, please keep the chat in English, please. Please keep the chat in English. Thank you.
Of heavy science all at once. I think we need to pull back a bit and go back to our roots. You know, answering really dumb food questions like... somehow I proved myself wrong about the title card in the same episode, because that is the dumbest one we've done. But yeah, sprinkled between the discussions about burger weights and germ layers, Hank brought up a whole new debate that feels much more up Food Theory's alley.
If I eat 1% of my body weight in nachos, so I'm 220, if I eat 2.2 pounds of nachos, which is not hard, I could easily pull that off. Am I 1% nacho?
I mean, this sounds like the same logic your mom used on you when you were a kid. You better stop eating chicken nuggets or else you're gonna turn into one. If we continue breaking this nacho into smaller and smaller pieces, say down to the molecular level, eventually we'd all stop calling it a nacho. And in reality, that's what our digestive system actually does every single day. It breaks down delicious foods like nachos into smaller and smaller bits, small enough that we can absorb them into the actual insides of our body and use it for things like nutrients and stuff. And this is where Hank and I are once again in lockstep, mainly because there's a big difference between something being a part of you by mass and something just being a part of you. When you eat something like these nachos, for a hot second, like we've established so far, it is a part of you by mass, meaning you plus nachos equals whatever weight. But for you to be made up of nachos, we're talking about biological incorporation. And when you get down to that small of a level, it's all molecules. You're not part nacho, you're part protein, carbs, fats, amino acids, yada yada yada. Well, another mystery solved. Finally, I can get back to watching some Ludwig from video games.
Oh God.
Hank, baby, I'm live.
I thought you might be.
If I have soup and I leave the soup out overnight, why can't I simply bring that soup to a boil and eat it like it's good?
Nope. I am done with Ludwig's questions. That's gonna have to be a story for another time. But hey, that's just a theory.
A food theory.
Buen provecho.
Alright, let's see here. Alright, chat, I'd say today was pretty successful. We completed the art piece I was working on, and I did learn quite a bit. Trying to draw it. Learned what I can change, what I can do. As for remembering to like put like accessories on it, I still need to focus on that. No, not the fry. No. Anywho, I'd say is thank you for joining today's stream. Thank you for watching today's YouTube VOD. My name is Brandon Blitz. I'm a variety streamer. I stream lots of video games as well as draw art and I program, and soon I'll be getting to 3D modeling. And thank you for everyone who recently subscribed to YouTube on YouTube, and thank you everyone who's recently followed me on Twitch, and thank you everyone who's also recently followed me and donated on Joystick. And that being said, I'm gonna spend the rest of the night probably just making dinner and watching more YouTube. And that being said, alright, and enjoy the Discord, alright? And that being said, I gotta get going now. Bye bye, matinee.